Morning. Thank you for coming to the meeting. Lander County Commissioners meeting, Town Board of Battle Mountain and Austin Board of County Highway Commissioners, December 8th, 2022. Lander County Courthouse Commissioners Chamber 50, State Route 305, Battle Mountain, Nevada. Also via teleconference at Austin Courthouse Commission Office 122 Main Street, Austin, Nevada, or audio conference by GoToMeeting. Call in details 1-866-899-4679, access code 849-277-573, or you can go to the website gotomeeting.com. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. JR, would you lead us, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Have a moment of silence, please. Lander County Commissioners may break for lunch from 12 p.m. to 1:15 p.m. Any agenda item may be taken out of order, may be combined for consideration by the public body, and items may be pulled or removed from the agenda at any time. Commissioners' reports on meetings, conferences, seminars attended. Patsy?
No report, thank you.
Kathy?
I attended the hospital board meeting. I attended the hospital board meeting last night. I did, for the first time, abstain from voting or even doing the evaluation on the CEO. I disagreed last year with the amount that they wanted to give him for a raise, and I still do. And so I told them during the meeting that I was abstaining. He still received his 15% plus his 3% COLA. And so I just explained I did not believe it was fair when some of the employees barely get a 3%, and that I wanted it corrected last year. They put it on the agenda last meeting to look at it, but I was in the hospital. And so I left it at that. I just abstained from any type of dealing with that agenda item.
Thank you. Thank you for standing up.
Well, it's taken me a few years to understand how this whole process works, you guys, even as a county commissioner or sitting on these boards, to understand how this stuff works. And our undersheriff that I know my whole life doesn't barely even get a 3% raise for the time he's been there. And I brought that up, and I had got a little bit of kickback that I'm a supervisor of his, and I had no right to say that, but I said I'm not a supervisor of his. We just deal with a budget. I have no say on what he gets, but I utilize him because of the amount of work and the years of service that he has done. He only barely gets a 3%, and it doesn't matter to me. No one deserves, aside from Jesus Christ, an 18% raise a year. I'm sorry, not that that's just my own personal opinion. So
What is the salary for the CEO?
I didn't look, but I know for the last 3 years, I think it's he has, regardless of what his salary is, that's what they put in his contract. And I didn't understand that reading it the first few years. And shame on me, but I did not understand that. So last year I voted on it, and he got the 18%. And then boy, I had people pulling my hair out all over town as I ran down the street because I didn't understand how the whole process worked. Well, this year I did, and it's that's what the board decided and agreed to in his contract. But I had asked for that to be changed, so.
Nobody else agreed with you?
They didn't, I had a little bit of kickback, but nobody else said said much to me about it, and so that's where it lied. So, laid right there, so, thank you. That's the only meeting I've attended.
Brian?
No report, Bert.
JR?
Yeah, I went to the public lands meeting the other night, and, they're trying to hammer on the 2477 roads. And I begged Bert to come in, and he came in and straightened them out on it.
So they're
Hopefully
okay
we
now?
got it settled.
Okay, Bert?
Good morning, Commission. So to JR's comment, he never has to beg me. I will show up anytime you guys need me at any meeting, but on the 2477 roads, there's a couple different approaches that will probably be coming back before this commission. I know that, there's some consideration by some of these other boards that they're looking at some other options that other counties have done from Nye County to Eureka County and how they've covered themselves under both NRS's 403 and 405 to make sure that they're compliant. So Lander County's way ahead with our roadmap. We're behind Nye County. They've done a different approach, but I think we're also in the best interest of the taxpayer and the private property owner. And that's what these other boards are looking for, and they'll bring it back to you guys with, further recommendations. And then for Austin, the TV, that's still pending with the FCC, and it's likely we won't hear anything until after, the new year and the holidays. So we are still moving forward there, but it is just now in the attorney's hands, and as you guys know, that often takes a lot of time. We do have our surplus sale up and online. It's posted. They're posting it all around town on how you can get on there, and this is a nationwide sale, so people can get on from anywhere and bid on this. Hopefully we start getting some bids. We went with everything at scrap price for our base bid, so anybody can bid, but we won't sell anything for less than what we could get if we were to scrap it. So hopefully that sounds fair to you guys. And then we did just close on the Gilbert Creek property. The sales deed has been recorded, and I've already started conversations with the NDOW and working on getting the BLM to the table with us as well to start some partnerships there and start upgrading that property. So with that, that's all I have, and everything else is on the agenda.
Just one thing on the 2477 roads, I did submit the Nye County, handout on that to Keith Westengard 7-8 years ago, so we've been on top of this all this time. I just don't know where it's gonna wind up, or what is the right approach for it. Okay, public comment for non-agendized items only. Persons are invited to submit comments in writing and or attend, make comments on any non-agendized item at the board meeting, if any, and discuss those comments at the discretion of the board. All public comments may be limited to 3 minutes per person, again, at the discretion of the board. Reasonable restrictions may be placed on public comment based upon time, place, and manner, but public comment based upon viewpoint may not be restricted. Do we have any public comment? Anybody on the phone? Okay. Consent agenda. All matters listed under consent agenda are considered routine and may be acted upon by the Board of County Commissioners with one action, without extensive discussion. Any member of the board or any citizen may request that an item be taken from the consent agenda, discussed and acted upon separately during this meeting. Consent agenda materials are available at the Lander County Clerk's Office for viewing, and copies are available for a nominal charge. Approve the December 8th, 2022 agenda notice. Number 2, approval of October 13th, 2022 meeting minutes. Number 3, approval of October 27th, 2022 meeting minutes. And number 4, approval of November 16th, 2022 meeting minutes. And number 5, approve the payroll change requests.
I didn't receive the minutes for November 16th, which is number 4, and no payroll requests, number 5. Is that what everybody else has?
Did you get minutes for 27?
Okay, I'll make a motion, we approve.
Wait, Patsy,
No,
I need
what-
you to pull number 1.
What?
I need you to pull the consent agenda. It needs to be amended for item number 14.
Okay. And so I will make a motion, we approve number 2 and number 3, the meeting minutes of October 13th and October 27th.
I'll second.
Okay, Patsy made the motion, Kathy seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now we have payroll request.
Number 1 with the
Number-
correction.
What are we
Number-
doing with number 14?
Number 14, it needs to be changed from 4th Street to 4th Street.
And the record to reflect in the backup on that particular item, there is a picture of the structures as well as a picture of the streets that the structures are built on.
Bless you.
That's the only
We
one?
just need to change Forest to Fourth.
Okay,
Yes.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we approve the amended agenda for today, December 8th.
I'll second the motion.
Patsy made the motion, Ryan seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Commissioners, for possible discussion and possible action, approve, disapprove, payment of bills. We have, check number 217670 and 217741 for Brian. So he won't vote on these.
I'll make a motion that we pay, the remaining bills excluding those 2 checks.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, Kathy made the motion, Brian seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Brian,
I'll make a motion, we approve check number 217670 and 217741.
I'll second it.
Okay, Patsy made the motion, JR seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
I abstain, they're made to my employer.
Okay. Number 2, Public Defender, for discussion, possible action, approve, disapprove, proposed contract between Lander County and Swanson, Bellinger, and Plimpton for the Public Defender Agreement to modify, negotiate, or put out to bid.
Art, will you ask if he's on the phone? I was informed he was gonna be here in person, so he may still be en route.
He informed me also that he planned on being here. So if he's not on the phone, I would suggest we just hold off and see if he comes in.
Okay. So who would be on the phone, Swanson or Bellinger? or Plimpton?
Kyle Swanson.
Kyle Swanson.
Anybody on the phone? Okay, we'll come back to that then.
Muted.
Okay.
Unmuted.
Number 3, RailSense Enterprise, Inc., for discussion possible action to approve, disapprove a professional service agreement between Lander County and RailSense Enterprise, Inc.
So basically, was this based on our last discussion?
Yeah.
We reworked, consideration?
That's it.
We did?
We, Bert and I and Rail City had a number of phone calls, and we put that together, and along with your concerns, so we think we satisfy all your concerns, but you can tell us if,
That's all we changed was that one paragraph with
That's
a
it.
description, right, what
Right,
we
well,
asked for.
yeah, exactly, what,
And the description looks good.
What is success? Yeah, that was the topic.
what defined a successful startup?
right.
Well, if there's no questions, I'll make a motion that we approve a professional service agreement between Lander County and RailSense Enterprises, Inc.
I'll second.
Any public comment on this? Brian made the motion, Kathy seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. That's gonna be pretty exciting for Lander County. Okay, number 4, update presentation from Scott Nicholas with Format Technologies regarding geothermal energy exploration and development. Welcome, Scott.
Morning,
'cause
Scott.
I got some questions for you, buddy.
Okay.
Good morning.
We're gonna leave it to the professionals here.
On the endangered list.
Commissioners, thank you for having me this morning. I guess I better speak there. My name is Scott Nichols with Orman Press. There we go. Commissioners, my name is Scott Nichols with Ormat Technologies. Wanted to thank you for having me here this morning. This is an agenda item, and Ormat would like to just be able to present an overview of our geothermal development process. As most of you know, we have a number of projects around the region and in the county under exploration, some in development, and some in operations. With that said, I'm going to make sure this comes up on the PowerPoint so that you can actually see this presentation. There it is. Okay. In view is going to be. Okay, I'm gonna try and move this over here if we can go that far. Will it go that far? Okay. If it's okay if I stand, I'll project as well as I can.
Sure.
Okay, discussion topics. First of all, I wanted to address why geothermal, energy perspectives. I like to address, did you know? I see a lot of comments from across counties and communities. They're all quite similar, and I see them again and again, whether I'm in Idaho, Utah, Oregon, and obviously throughout Nevada. Regional power market perspectives, coming across the hill this morning with the Valmy Power Plant, and up into southern Idaho, it's really interesting to see what's happening in the power markets, capacity factors, and the types of geothermal systems that we work with. Within the Great Basin, I want to give you a quick geological perspective. What makes Lander County and northwestern Nevada literally ground zero for geothermal energy. Development process, the length of the development process, and the number of unknowns in the development process. Lastly, just a regional perspective, past, present, and future, and some of the environmental and community benefits that are provided, and then I'll stand for questions. I'm going to speak really fast. I know this is an information item, and you've got a lot on your plate. If you have any reason to stop me, just raise a hand, and I'll hold off and take your question as we go. Is this going to advance? There we go. Okay, so one of the questions I get is, if you put a geothermal power plant in my neighborhood, in our backyard, in our county, is all that power going to go to us? Are we going to be able to use that power? Or are you just going to ship it out of state? And my answer to that is yes and no. The U.S. electric market is made up of thousands of balancing authorities. In Idaho, we have Idaho Power. In Utah, we have Rocky Mountain Power. In Nevada, we have NV Energy. It goes throughout California. But what's really unique about those balancing systems and authorities is that all of those utilities have to balance power production and power consumption equivalently throughout the day on a 24/7 basis. And so the power we produce does go into our backyard, but it's sort of like filling a pool with multiple hoses and then asking, do I get to swim in my water? The answer is yes, you get to swim in your water, but I can't tell you whether it came from your hose or somebody else's hose. And so the geothermal systems that we develop for electric production contribute to that pool of renewable energy. The other thing that I like to explain about the electric system is that when we talk about being able to balance on a minute-by-minute basis, I have a friend in Idaho that worked for Idaho Power, and when he found out I worked for Ormat Technologies, he said, hey, he says, I get to turn your system up and down once in a while. He says, we have to call up and turn off your power if we're producing too much. And I said, that was pretty neat, and we talked a little bit about the logistics there. And what most people that I've talked with, and maybe this is remedial for me, didn't understand that literally, when we talk about or hear about brownouts or blackouts in California or at some other utility, we're not accustomed to that in the Intermountain West here because we're a pretty stable system. But as power demand increases, there's an individual that is ramping up and balancing power with all these balancing authorities to make sure that we don't overproduce. If we overproduce power, that electricity has to be shed and put into some other area. It has to be saved in a battery system. It has to be used someplace. Otherwise, it results in an overpowering of the system, and then you blow transformers and fuses just like you would in your house. At the same time, if we don't produce enough, then it's like a hose in a leaky faucet. That said, the U.S. has more than 7,300 power plants, 160,000 miles of high voltage and low voltage transmission lines. We see them every day, millions of low voltage. Really here, the idea is that there's also a difference between power production or distribution and power transmission. We have some very, very large power lines running throughout Nevada and into southern Idaho. And somebody will say, well, can't we just get power from that line right there? And so we need to recognize that just because there's a power line doesn't mean that that power is available or that we can interconnect to it. So distribution lines come from a substation and go to users. Transmission lines, transmission goes from a power source and is transmitted to a substation. So we have lines that literally run from the dams of the Columbia River in Oregon and Washington all the way south to the Los Angeles Basin to deliver power. That is a transmission line, 500 kV line that runs down through northern Washoe County and Lyon County and others. So there are differences in those lines. I just want to highlight, that failure to balance demand and supply results in local brownouts and blackouts. We like to talk about that because of this capacity factor. The capacity factor is we came across the valley and looked at the solar system outside of town. I looked at a wind power site, headed actually in Idaho last week, and then these geothermal power plants. The Valmy Power Plant is a perfect example of nearly 100% capacity factor. For whatever megawatts the Valmy Power Plant was designed to operate at, it delivers all of those megawatts on a 99, probably 100% efficiency basis. It never quits producing that. Its power supply is very, very consistent. Geothermal power is the same way. It provides a very consistent power output that can be depended upon for all of these day-to-day changes in use that we as a community subject that power system to and that our utility is trying to balance. Wind energy and solar energy, here's my plug for geothermal, it's a shameless plug. But a wind power facility generates about 45% of its designed capacity. A solar facility delivers about 30% of its, 25 to 30% of its design capacity. So what does that mean in layman's terms? And for the general public is that, well, let's just say the town of Battle Mountain needs 3 megawatts of power, for example, to run the whole town on a continuous basis, regardless of time of year. Well, if we have a 3 megawatt geothermal power plant, that 3 megawatt geothermal plant would be built to deliver 3 megawatts. It would sit on a couple acres, and it would deliver that on a 99.5% availability year round. If we look at that in a wind turbine farm, a wind turbine system, you would require about double or 50% more production capacity. So the wind power, they would develop a 6 megawatt wind farm to deliver that power. And you would have to fill in with other sources when that wind doesn't blow. For solar power, we would take that same solar capacity and we would design about 10 megawatts of solar to deliver the 3 megawatts that you need for actual power consumption. If we add battery storage on that solar to provide the other 50% of our day, then you have to double that acreage again, or that size again. So you can see from in the geothermal industry, we really like to value the fact that that power is on, and it's on all the time, every day, and it's dependable. Not that solar's not that wind is not. They have their place, but they don't provide that same level of efficiency. Geothermal systems and power generation, we like to talk about three systems. Low temperature resource, geothermal resources are used for direct heating. You see in Klamath Falls, Oregon, you see at the Peppermill Resort in Reno, subdivision in West Reno, those are all direct heating uses where a low temperature geothermal source, maybe of 90 to 125 or 150 degree thermal source, is being used from the ground in a well to provide direct heat, maybe in-floor heating, or provide some sort of radiant heating in the building for commercial purposes. Elko also has a geothermal heating opportunity or district there, and I don't know the status of that. Boise, Idaho has the largest heating district in the United States. It's a huge, several miles of downtown Boise, and all of the public buildings are heated with the direct use heating. Medium temperature resources are in the neighborhood of, let's say, 260 degrees to maybe 300 and 320 degrees. Those are binary cycle power plants, which we are familiar with in Nevada. There are a few extremely high temperature sources. I understand Biawawi used to be a high temperature steam resource. Northern California produces high temperature steam resources in which when you drill into that steam resource, the pressure of the steam coming from that resource can be directly used to drive a turbine. So those are those three different types of geothermal resources. Far and away the most common in Nevada and what we develop at ORMAC are binary cycle medium temperature resources providing electricity to the grid. Power generation with geothermal under this binary cycle system is pretty straightforward. We produce or take geothermal brine from the ground. We extract the heat. We put that heat, exchange that heat from the brine to a working fluid, such as pentane or butane. That pentane or butane expands in a confined chamber. When it expands in that confined chamber, it builds up pressure. It drives a turbine. That turbine then spins a generator, which we make power. As that brine and that working fluid both exit out of the exhaust chambers, they are still contained. They never see the light of day. The geothermal brine itself is injected back into the geothermal system, and the isopentane, isobutane, or even R134 refrigerant in some cases never sees the light of day. That's recycled and then reused in that power generation cycle. That's why we call it a binary or two-cycle system, geothermal fluid and a working fluid to generate power. It's a zero-emission facility, and it does not use groundwater for that resource. I want to talk about that also, this groundwater resources, because they are so important in Nevada in the West right now. As I talk about that, here's a really good perspective of, the border is there, from Pyramid Lake, down by Mono Lake, and all the way up into Idaho, the state of Nevada. And you'll see all of these red lines represent my best guess at, just to represent the basin and range fault system that Nevada is known for. Basin and range system is responsible for Nevada's extensive gold fields, obviously. That basin and range system is also responsible for the extensive geothermal development. The same geothermal development, the same structural processes that created those gold mines also account for the geothermal systems that are available to us today. I heard a number. If you look up in the upper left-hand corner of that photo, north of Pyramid Lake in this northwestern quadrant of Nevada, I've been told that there is a fault system that runs perpendicular, or east-west, I should say, out into the Pacific Ocean. And there's actually an intersection of faults there. and it accounts for an expansion of the state of Nevada at several inches per year. It's pretty fascinating. And that red line in the upper left-hand corner of Nevada, that red line starts at the geothermal site at the north end of Pyramid Lake and goes all the way. If you track that line, I actually extended that line to Vail, Oregon. On that red line, there are no less than 10 geothermal spring systems on that fault system that extends all the way to Vail in that basin and range. So this complex geologic perspective is really what makes us so interested in the opportunities in Nevada to develop geothermal power. There we go. So I want to talk about the development process. Geothermal power takes more time and more federal regulatory oversight than any other energy resource we can develop except nuclear. Our timeframes from the starting of leasing to the actual delivery of power are now extending to in the neighborhood of 5 to 6 years. Probably 5 to 6 years minimum. We're trying to solve that problem at a state and federal level, while other industries are able to develop relatively quickly. It seems to center around the fact that you can't see geothermal. We don't know what you're going to drill into, but we have the technology and the means to ensure that it is done safely. But people always want to ask, and our agencies want to ask, well, what do you expect? Well, we can know what we expect, but we can't know. And so there are a myriad of regulatory requirements that, like other industries, we also have to deal with. We start out with this reconnaissance exploration and look at the geology. We look at the temperatures. We can actually take a sample of a hot spring and we measure a number of chemical parameters. We put that on a chart and we can determine the highest temperature that water has ever achieved, which is really amazing because if we go to the spring down out here by between here and Austin, and there's a nice big hot spring there in the middle of the valley, that water has been sampled, and I can't remember the exact temperature, but it was a little under commercial temperatures. I think the highest geothermometry is what we call that, is about 240 degrees. So that was the highest temperature it's ever achieved. We just don't know if that was achieved at depth, 3 miles below the surface of the ground, or if that was achieved, that temperature got hot 1,000 years ago and now it's just not that hot anymore. So we've got to figure that out in the geologic analysis. That is part of the puzzle that we have to work on. Once we find that source and we have a good understanding that there is a potential for hot resource there, we start development drilling. Then we look at operational power plant design, and then we go into operations, all of which is reviewed by you and your county offices. We enter into road maintenance agreements, we enter into cost share agreements, we enter into utility and transmission agreements to do that, and work obviously with the Bureau of Land Management and Forest Service as necessary. I'm sorry, that is slow on the, there we go. So, Ormat's producing geothermal facilities. Everybody's probably heard of Dixie Valley. We've got Dixie Meadows, we've got the Tungsten Project, and I won't go through these in too much detail. Brady Hot Springs between here and Winnemucca on Interstate 80. We've got an expansion of that. Desert Peak geothermal facility, probably all familiar with the Beowawe geothermal facility over the hill. Ormat acquired that about just over a year ago. We're currently exploring in Crescent Valley. We are actually doing some core drilling in Crescent Valley right now, and we're also looking at if people are familiar with the, I'm sorry, not Coeur d'Alene Mines, but what's the mine there by Whirlwind? We call it Whirlwind. There's a gold mine just to the south of Beowawe. We have an interest in a geothermal site right near that. So Dixie Meadows, I've talked about those exploration. Say that again? Just southwest of Crescent Valley. Fire Creek?
What is it?
Fire Creek.
Fire Creek
Right,
Mine.
right. Big gold.
Oh,
80 gold now.
So,
Need a smelter.
really quickly on the environmental benefits, again, a shameless plug for geothermal. We like to tout that these are zero emission power generation facilities. If you were to develop a direct steam turbine geothermal power plant from very, very high temperatures, in some cases those have been built as steam emissions. Even now, or in today's markets, we're trying to capture those and convert those over to binary cycle so that there's no loss of geothermal fluid in the system. We like to say that geothermal generated energy produces more kilowatts using less land area with less environmental impact than any other renewable or non-renewable energy we can develop. I would say maybe except for nuclear, but nuclear uses large volumes of water. Geothermal systems are separate from groundwater. Detailed hydrology studies are done before and after any development. And we have to show that there's no drainage of local springs. And that is a big fight right now on several fronts with Dixie Valley Toad. And we are in the middle of that. So Ormat's new plants use dark sky compliant motion censored lighting. No brine is released to the atmosphere. And again, we have this very, very small environmental and visual footprint. We have a 10 megawatt facility at Raft River, Idaho. That 10 megawatt facility sits on about 2.5 acres. Most people don't even know it exists. We have a very large facility at the Steamboat facility in Reno, Nevada, and most of the neighborhood there does not even realize that there's a power plant there. The city is built up around that project. Community benefits for the county. Geothermal power plants create really reliable, long-term, well-paying jobs. Upper middle income on a long-term contractual basis. We have no impact on county services other than maybe road maintenance. And again, we entered into agreements for road maintenance. There's no county infrastructure or upgrades required. We don't require new roads, new schools. We're not going to bring in 5,000 people or change the demographics and your needs at a community level. The 10 megawatt project generates about $350,000 annually in new county taxes and royalty payments, and there is a substantial distribution from the BLM on federal land sites for royalties back to the county also. Again, we still talked about a 10 megawatt standalone power plant. Not only is it on about a 2.5 acre, or maybe let's say it's less than 5 acres, but it also can be operated remotely, and typically requires about 5 staff to operate. So they're very small, very clean, pretty innocuous operations to have in and around the community. And I say that as we talk about, historically, I think every industry has legacy issues. We all learn from mistakes, and I can't speak to what Ormat has done in the past, but I've been trying to evaluate where are geothermal's drawbacks. What projects in the past people said, oh, we shouldn't do that again, or what do we need to correct? And that's the really neat thing about geothermal, is that when we do end up with something, well, we didn't expect that. The neat thing about geothermal is that we have the ability to say, well, let's change it now. We don't have to wait an eternity to make that change. In this region, we're looking at repowering the Beowawe power plant, upgrading the facilities there. We are drilling, as I said, at Crescent Valley. We're looking at a new facility there. I know how many megawatts we would like to produce. I'm not sure if, where it will come out yet. We're still determining the resource. And then we're looking at a project at that Fire Creek mine, right in that very same vicinity, what we're referring to as the Whirlwind geothermal project. Again, a new facility, and we're in exploration phase, and we're doing baseline water monitoring and some geothermometry there. I spoke longer than I needed to.
No,
Thank you for your
great.
time, and I will be happy to stand for any questions, Commissioners.
I've got some questions.
Okay.
Are they building a geothermal power plant in Dyer Fish Lake?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
There are actually 2 projects at Dyer Fish Lake, and I just talked with those folks last week. I'm gonna try and turn this off. I guess I could just close that, right?
The reason I asked is because the only place that I've ever heard of in rural Nevada that had the brownouts was
Yes.
Dyer Fish Lake, because they're on the California grid.
Yes, sir.
They got the lithium mine there, so
Yes.
now they have to develop their own power.
Yes, that is, it will be interesting to see how that plays out. So there is another company working, you're right, in the north end of the valley. And you're right, we do have 2 geothermal power plants and a lithium mine. Ioneer is looking at that project there. And that will require some new transmission, and I'm actually headed there to talk to the community.
So, coal,
Yes, sir.
oil, and geothermal are 100% consistent.
They are what we call base load energy, Commissioner.
Okay.
Yes,
And wind and solar aren't even at 50%.
that is correct.
Is nuclear, it's 100%, yeah?
Nuclear is considered a base load energy. So it's really interesting, and please stop me if I get off on a tangent. I'm worse on squirrels. But this concept of base load or intermittent resources is critically important to you as a community and us as users. And you can look on, and I say this as much for our public here, we produce power, or use power as a community in an almost perfect curve on a community basis every day. And that power curve ramps up at 7 o'clock in the morning when we all get up and we're headed to work. And that power curve ramps up for about an hour and then drops off when we all go to work, and everything's normal. When I say normal, it floats down here at this base level, and then we all go home. And what happens? We flip on the washer and the dryer and the TV and the computers, and our power curve goes up again until about 10 o'clock, and then it goes down. And so what these intermittent resources, Commissioner, what we have shown is that those intermittent resources are not necessarily being produced when we need them. And that's why my introduction with this idea of balancing and how we have to balance this production between baseload and intermittent production.
Now, when you extract the brine, do
Yes,
you
sir.
get any byproducts?
We have no byproducts,
Okay.
but that does not mean that secondary companies, we have been contacted by secondary companies
Okay.
to be able to take that fluid and extract some of the dissolved minerals
Right.
in that brine stream.
Okay.
And again, that would be done without seeing the light of day, so to speak. All that fluid has to go back in the ground,
So you're hampered by federal regulations.
just a little.
Okay. That's because it's so efficient.
It's,
I got it.
you know, and I have some very good friends that work, I myself worked for the Public School Endowment Fund for many years in natural resources. And I say that it is just a long process. To be very specific, we are required to do a National Environmental Policy Act analysis, typically an environmental assessment, just to put a well in the ground.
The last thing that I have to say is I did catch the commercial on Channel 8 about the litigation.
Oh, you did, okay.
And the attorney for the frog seems pretty adamant that he will stop any development if that frog is gonna be hurt. Good luck.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Waits, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, mine is on, thank you. Mine is on where we are with the Sage Grouse. It's been a very learning
ma'am.
experience. I know we've done a lot of different things since the time you've been at McGinnis anyway, for our
Yes, ma'am.
concern in the southern part. But I also know that it's had some long-term effects, and I wondered where we are now compared to, when you started, and what we have in the future.
Commissioner, it's very interesting. We actually had 2 meetings last year with the McGinnis Hills Working Group. As you just may recall, ORMAT contributed several hundreds of thousands of dollars into that working group. The last of that working group money was allocated for use on a couple of projects just 2 months ago. The grouse report that I received just 1 year ago from Dr. Peter, I believe it's Coates, out of the University of California, Davis, reported that that population of grouse at McGinnis is, I'm going to use some statistical terms that I'm not completely familiar with, but was exposed to at his discussion and explanation of that population of grouse. And that is they are at, they're not growing and they're not declining. They're there. They're stable. But they're just barely hanging on there. And what he identified was that the short-term predation assists in the annual survivability of chicks. So short-term predation is an impact to baby grouse. It's an impact to my baby chickens too. So, the feral cats and whatnot that I deal with, are not very welcome. But the money that ORMAT has invested in long-term habitat to help establish and ensure that that population is not subjected to predation is there, and that's going to be put on the ground this year, or this next year, I'm sorry. Are you familiar with those two projects, ma'am?
No.
That would be a juniper removal for the, juniper lop and slash, basically for that juniper encroachment, reduces nesting habitat for ravens, and probably other aptorial species, but for ravens, which is the primary issue.
I'm familiar with us doing it, because we've been doing it for some time.
Yes,
You know,
okay.
We started with Cooperative Extension and some of their programs years ago.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then the other one is a riparian habitat protection enhancement just to the north of McGinnis. So that's, I think they'll both be effective, but I learned a lot in those discussions with the experts on grouse too, Commissioner.
I have a comment to make. So I read the USGS study on that and the mitigation that's been going on for like 11 years over the sage grouse. And I think the sage grouse issue is a little bit bigger than the study from the from UC Davis. I'm sorry to disagree with him, but
Yeah.
with contacting the different agencies, I have to find out that about 7 of the 8 mating grounds are gone.
At McGinnis?
Yeah, at McGinnis.
Oh, okay.
7 of the 8 are gone. And
Yeah.
they won't come back because they are very temperamental birds. And there's nothing that mitigation that you're gonna do by cutting down trees. And I'm not trying to be confrontational.
No,
Please
understood.
Don't take it that way. My tone of voice is because of my outlet. not
That's
to be
okay,
a
mine
hack.
too.
That's not, you're not gonna bring that back. What those birds do, they've done for hundreds of years, and nothing that you're going to do is bring, but 7 of the 8 are gone.
Kathy,
And,
was it because of the structures that
no, part of it is the power line that goes over
Oh.
because of the noise, that
Got you,
power
okay.
line. It's so loud, and it's not just them, it's so loud that they have a specific mating thing that they go through, and it throws them
Gotcha.
off.
Alright.
And my twofold issue, for one, the bird, but the other is if these birds go on the endangered species list, there's the ripple effect of all of us is huge. No mining, no, and cutting down the trees and trying to do that, I'm sorry, and I'm not trying to be, please, but that's not going to do it. There are far bigger issues that truly need to be discussed, and those birds are going to be the thing that shuts everything down. So I just think when we're talking about environmentals and when we're kicking that door open, we're going to need to kick it open and truly talk about the issues of what will happen to the state of Nevada and mining and those birds if things aren't
Yeah.
done correctly. And so I just want to put that on the record, that it's a lot bigger issue than cutting down junipers. And I'm not trying to be sarcastic,
No, I
so please
understand.
don't take it that way, because I know that they've cut down trees and that does nothing for them. And so it's kind of laughable when I see it, because it really, though that means nothing to those birds, but thank you.
And I heard your report, and that was one of the reasons I asked the questions, because I heard that we had lost a lot of that
Yeah.
in the southern area. But, you can't change the lines, so I don't know where we're gonna hit it from.
Yeah, I know this is not on the subject of geothermal power,
Yeah,
but
but
I mean,
it's important.
it is important, and, I look at, just to share from a different state, I'm on the Idaho State Resource Advisory Council for the BLM in Idaho. And we are looking at, our subcommittee right now is looking at the first of 3 80,000 acre, each one individually, 80,000 acre wind turbine farms. All being proposed to tie into the Greenlink project in eastern Nevada. But that's interesting because the counties that are affected by that, and we've been out on the ground and looked at what the company wants to do there. That's landscape scale. And I think, it's very interesting, commissioners, and for the public that's listening, we've all been here a while. And I guess I would just leave you with, as I think about this, I think as we think about how to address these problems, I grew up hunting grouse. The last sage grouse I shot, I can tell you where it was. I've been to the spot, and that was 36 years ago. And I still am an avid outdoorsman. I'll leave it at that. But my point was, never think about this perspective. Never in our lifetimes have we seen a situation in which the wide open spaces of the Great Basin and the West, you have to say, I don't like what that guy's doing over there. I mean, we are, we're a community of individuals who's said, now wait a minute, as long as I'm doing my thing, it's no problem because nobody else is going to be adversely affected. And today, our county commissions and the people we elect to represent us are making decisions, and we have to make decisions about not just, it's land use on a landscape scale. It's not just a zoning issue about whether you can put a 20-foot garage next to a one-story house. It's a challenging time.
Now, I don't think that everybody understands what Greenlink is.
I will let you explain that, Commissioner.
Greenlink is a electric transmission system, lines, that'll go from Vegas to Ely, over to Yarrington, and back to Vegas. But this is new to me that Greenlink is gonna extend further up than Ely, because,
To Jerome, Idaho,
wow.
all the way up through, north out of Wells. I think that's that green line.
Well, it makes sense to go up that way.
Yeah.
But and when this information came forward in a state lands meeting, I said, well, it looks like all that electric will be going to Vegas, and the gal from Vegas said, no, we have solar farms down here and we don't get any energy. So Greenlink, where's it gonna go?
Look at, commissioners, were you at the convention, NACO convention in October? Nye County informed me that they have no less than 40 new solar proposals. 40 new solar proposals. What's interesting there is how many have sales contracts.
Yeah. Well, in 8 years, we have put $400,000 towards sage grouse. In the last 8 years, I don't know
Scott,
before then, but we've tried everything we can.
would you be available maybe to come back and speak in front of the commission if we can get, and now in the BLM here as well, and because we have a lot of conflicting information that not only the commission but the community is bringing concern to, that maybe we can put on the public record and ease some of them concerns or verify them.
On the grouse issues, you mean?
You bet.
You know what, I have a couple of friends at Elko BLM who have sat on that McGinnis Hills working group, and I'm happy to come back and, talk about what Ormat's done and how we tie in and what we've done with NDOW. If you'd like us to come back, manager, yes.
You bet, if that's what, if the commission is okay with that, I think that,
Yeah, this
I
is
would appreciate
important.
it.
This is really important. You know, and the last thing I'll say is, you know, they found an industrial use for juniper tree sap. They put it in asphalt and make the asphalt as hard as concrete. It's just kind of interesting that they want to harvest these juniper trees after that information came out. Is there any public comment? Amy? No? Okay, we're gonna take a 10-minute break.
Sorry that went over, thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
Muted. This conference is no longer being recorded.
Go back to the public defender.
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, we're gonna get started here. We're gonna go back to, number 2. For discussion and possible action, approve, disapprove the proposed contract between Lander County and Swanson, Bellinger, and Plimpton for the public defender agreement to modify, negotiate, or put out to bid. Morning. Morning. Take it away.
All right, thank you. Commission, this is a biannual exercise. Been here twice before, once to establish the contract, once before to renew. So this would be the second renewal. My partner, Todd Plimpton, had it for 2 renewal cycles prior to me taking it over in 2019. The terms of the contract is always that at the end of the 2-year period, it comes up for renewal. And so that's what I'm doing here today before you. You should hopefully have a copy of the proposed contract. There haven't been a significant number of changes since the last one, but there have been some changes. Notably, since we were here 2 years ago, the Department of Indigent Defense in the state of Nevada has instituted several requirements. Time reporting is probably the most major one that takes a lot of my time. I have to log every minute that I spend on every client that is appointed to me, and that is sent into the state as well as with every public defender in the state of Nevada. We all have to do that now. And in addition to that, another requirement that has changed is pursuant to the Valdez Jimenez versus District Court, Nevada Supreme Court case. It now says, well, the opinion stated that any person arrested must be given a detention hearing within a reasonable period of time. The legislature codified that in the last session, which said that reasonable is going to be interpreted as 48 hours. So 4 times a week, the Argenta Justice Court has detention hearings if there have been individuals that have been arrested within that period of time. And we hold those on Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, and Sundays, which is obviously an issue because, like your last guest, I'm an outdoorsman, and so on Sundays at 4 o'clock, I gotta make sure that I have cell service so that I can be present for detention hearings. The public defender by statute must appear at those, no matter how wealthy the individual is who has been arrested. And then after that, the court does a canvass as to whether or not the person can afford their own attorney. Most of the time, I'm appointed for further proceedings. Sometimes they can afford their own attorney and I'm not. So those are the 2 major things that have changed since the last contract that takes up a little more of my time, well, sometimes significantly more of my time than last time I was here before you. So the contract amount that has been proposed is an adjustment, number 1, based upon the cost of living. My research was that the cost of living since the last contract went into effect has risen by just slightly over 16%. And so that accounts for about half of the increase in the contract, just to keep even with what it was 2 years ago. And the rest of the increase is due to these reporting requirements and the detention hearings, which number 1, increase the amount of time that I got to spend pursuant to this contract, as well as having hearings on Sunday, which honestly is not something that I signed up for originally, but the Supreme Court and the legislature has spoken. That doesn't affect the bigger cities very much because they have a litany of public defenders and judges that that take turns of doing these things on weekends. Now, the rurals unfortunately do not have that. I'm the only public defender in Lander County, and most Nevada rural counties have the same problem. But we are at the whim of that 48-hour ruling that the legislature thought was important, so that people do not sit in detention longer than they have to before they are given what amounts to a probable cause hearing to see if they should be held longer or whether they should be released. And so that's the state of the law right now. So I don't know that there's anything else I can add. I'm happy to answer any questions that the commission has.
I did have, Counselor, thank you. And I know when the Indigent Defense Committee finished with everything and put all these mandates on the rural counties, and we decided to stay with our own public defender. But my understanding was that we compensated and really gave you a large increase last time because of that. So that was taken into consideration already, is what I'm sure that's what we were doing. So my question to you then is, because that still is a large jump for us from 130 to 170. Are you seeing a lot more? Because when I read the statistics, it didn't seem like we had, a large disproportionate share of more people being arrested and needing your services than we had before.
Well, first of all, the jump last time was only 120 to 130, and I think that was only cost of living. I did not price in any of this extra work at that time because it was still proposed. It didn't go into effect until July 1st of 2022. So in the last contract, I simply put in the contract that potentially, if these proposals are adopted, then I wanted to put you guys on notice that that's what might happen. It might mean that there's more time for me to put in this contract. So the last contract didn't have any jump for that because it hadn't happened yet. It was simply a cost of living increase. In terms of your second question as to how much work it has been, I did not do a view of my timekeeping software since October, but when I drafted this contract in the first part of October, I had 19 detention hearings since July 1st. So they each take roughly 30 to 45 minutes with preparation and then the actual hearing. And so that was in a 3-month period, July, August, and September, into the first part of October. I had done 19 hearings that I had not been doing before. So every quarter, I can probably count on about 20 of those hearings to be done. So 80 extra hearings a year.
But it hasn't gone up considerably, is what I'm saying, over the last few years, right?
No, these detention hearings were not required till July 1st, 2022. I didn't do a single one until then.
You didn't do any of them until then?
No, the law changed.
I'll just put my 2 cents in. I just think if we approve the contract, or if we're looking at the increase of $40,000, we should put it out to bid, because it's 24% increase. I think it would only be prudent that we do, and if Swanson was the last
Yes.
one? Is the only one that bids on it, he's the only one that bids on it, but it's just, I think it needs to go to bid with that amount of an increase. That's my 2 cents.
You still have a local office here, right?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, okay. But you travel to all the hearings and everything, or do you do them by Zoom, or?
The detention hearings can be done over the phone, yeah. But every other hearing, I have to be here in person.
Okay, so you don't have all that much traveling extra? Okay,
Not for the detention hearing. That's why I said 45 minutes.
okay.
If I had to travel, it'd be a lot more than that.
Well, of course, yeah. And even though your office is local, you're not, right?
I have
Okay.
a question for you. When you did your cost of living increase, how long had it been before you done your cost of living? When you did your, from 120 to 130, how long had it been since you had done a cost of living?
It was 2 years. These are every 2
Every
years.
2 years,
Uh-huh.
so you had done a cost of living prior to that.
Right, and of course, the cost of living then was about 2%.
Okay.
Now it's
Just-
closer to 8.
Yeah, too long ago for me to remember, so
Right,
I'm
mhm.
asking,
Yeah, the cost, just adding in the cost of living would increase this from 130 to 150, just to keep it even. And so the extra 20 from 150 to 170, that I guess in my mind more discretionary, and subject to some negotiation. I just threw out 170. I'm not set on that number necessarily, but I think it would be appropriate to at least make the compensation equivalent to where it was 2 years ago with cost of living, as well as some of the extra work that I have to do.
On this graph here, the total number of hours is 114 hours, 113.6. And a lot of those hours are, you know, an expert staff. That's $1,500 an hour for services. If you go with $170,000 for your contract and divide the 114 into that, that's $1,500 an hour.
Please remember that I have to hire my own staff. I have to pay a person.
That's in there. That's in this graph, right here.
That's what he's saying, out of that 1,500, he has to pay his staff.
He's paying that.
Right, that comes out of my pocket. The county does not pay for that.
I just want to say real quick, Lakin Sullivan, for the record, the report that we put in there, we put that in there from DIDS, from the Department of Indigent Defense, where he logs his hours. So I just wanted him to know that that came from us. It wasn't something he provided for the packet.
This came from you?
Yeah, from the hours he logs with the state.
When you do have those hearings, approximately how long do they last?
The detention hearings? On average, about 30 minutes for the hearing themselves, yeah. Sometimes a little less than that, but then with preparation time for it also. I get probable cause reports and risk assessments that I need to study and review prior to these hearings.
Well,
Anybody else? There.
Well, I for one would like us to continue to work with our own public defender rather than having the state provide it. That's all. And that was part of our agreement, right? When the committee met, we fought for that.
oh, yes,
Yeah.
we did.
So, if we decided we were going to go out and have somebody else, put in for this contract, we'd never get it done by January, and our contract expires the end of this month.
You guys got anything to add on that?
Well, I don't wanna get involved as the district attorney in who you should hire.
Well, no,
But-
I'm just,
but
I'm
your
concerned about
options-
the lap of service that she's,
Well-
because I still think we should put it out to bid.
Right, and when I was a public defender, for 25 years, it went out to bid, and matter of fact, you were the one that, put it out to bid twice when I was there. So it's a common thing to go out to bid. And it's agendized to modify, negotiate, or put out to bid. I mean, your options are to approve it today, to put it out to bid, and if it goes over the time, then you can work on a monthly, I mean, there's things you can do.
Right.
Or you can decide to have your own Lander County Public Defender. And those are the three options you have at this point.
Well, I'm wondering with the time frame, because I'm concerned about the time frame. Would you be susceptible to the idea of maybe we just did 1 year's contract at this point?
I would actually prefer that. That's what I do in Pershing County. I have 1 year contracts, and I think they're more flexible that way. Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't mean that we won't consider you for the year after, but if we look, but I'm thinking, if that's our concern,
Well, my
Well, no,
concern is
that-
the
that-
to see
increase.
if anybody
The
else is out there and would like to,
The 24%
I
is.
think
Take a look at
it
it.
needs to be bid. The 24% increase, it needs to be bid, put out.
so maybe just,
Or can it be negotiated, Ted? Is that a discussion that it can be set to negotiated
Well,
with him? Or-
that's, yeah, the
That's what I thought
agenda,
you just said. I
it's
mean,
been
is it-
agendized for you to have a lot
you
of
know,
different
that is
options.
something that, you know, you would be willing to, or is
When's
that
that-
your number set in stone?
When's the
Well,
last?
no, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Like
sorry.
like I mentioned, the 150 was just cost of living increase to keep it even with 2 years ago. The extra was me doing the work that I was not required to do 2 years ago. That extra 20,000 from 150 to 170 is negotiable.
So why don't we see if we can negotiate that? If
When is
it's
the
in
last
the-
time we bid this contract? Yeah, just because I'm
No,
concerned with the statistics I'm provided with, it doesn't look like it's a whole lot.
I
And I
don't
know he's saying that, starting July, that could increase, but when is the last time we've even put this out
I
to bid?
doubt I don't know.
14 years,
How long?
14 years.
I just want to point out as well, since this does fall in the middle of a budget, the increase is not in the budget, so it would affect the budget as well, an increase.
Okay.
Anybody have a motion?
Well, I mean, I guess I'll make a motion that we, but what number do we set it, how do we get the number? I know that sounds like a stupid question. Okay, go ahead, if I'm doing something wrong.
No, not a bit.
I'm gonna say, if we put it out for bid, what number do we put it at? How do you determine that number?
Well, I think
You
that,
take bids and they just,
Oh, I
they
see.
come to you.
I know that, I'm sorry, I knew that.
So-
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
so a couple things, I think to Commissioner Waite's concern is what we do in the lapse of the contract. And then, it sounds to me like there's some room for negotiation, that maybe we could cover that and then later go back out to bid, but it would come down to the cost of living and where them numbers are coming from. And then what kind of negotiations I think that we could get done with the 20,000, and we could probably wrap it up today and then be in the 1 year. And at the end of this next year, put it out to bid with plenty of time prior to, it being so close and us potentially not having legal.
Which, yeah,
When we started this, there was plenty of time, right? When we started this on the agenda, there was plenty of time.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Oh, yes, I see what you're saying.
Okay, and we postponed it for the attorney.
You could even extend it for 6 months to
Yeah.
negotiation until the next budget.
Oh,
And I-
extend the contract till the end of the budget cycle, which at that time we could be soliciting bids.
Right, well, then you can have plenty of time, but you'd have to make an agreement, that's the negotiation part. I mean, you have a lot of options. I'm not going to make an opinion on who you hire as public defender, because I don't think it's ethical. But I will point out that you have any option you want, and that's how it's been agendized.
And I guess just out of curiosity, how many public defenders are there what is our pool that we're gathering from? I guess we find that out if we went out to bid. I'm curious as to.
That's what I'm saying.
we'd have to pull from Elko.
Right.
Well, you can put it out to bid, I mean, when I had it, and it used to go out to bid, we usually have 3 or 4. And including the state public defenders, they always wanted to bid, and I wouldn't be surprised if they came and tried to take it again, I wouldn't ask for that, but I wouldn't advise that at all, but it depends on what your primary concern is. I mean,
My concern is the increase.
well, then.
I mean, it's affected everybody. It affects us, our projects, everything, and I think it's to be prudent, it needs to go to bid, to
And
make sure that we're getting the bid done.
It did, it went out to bid every 4 to 6 years when I had it.
So
Well, I remember, I was one of the commissioners,
Yes.
setting commissioners, said it needs to go to bid.
Yes.
For,
Well, I kind of propose that we extend him for 6 months and then, set it up with where we take it out to bid, and then we can put it on our budget for the next fiscal year.
For the sake of budgeting purposes, it'd probably be better for us if you guys made it 1 year, and then we revisited that after a year, but that's just my 2 cents on.
So we leave it so we take it as what he's offered at the 170 for 1 year. I don't, if you're willing to negotiate to come down on that for 1 year and and then go out to, then we set it out to bid, because I don't think anybody's
Well, another thing,
good with that amount,
another
that
thing it'll do
24%.
is it'll let us to see the increase, with that, since July, whatever, came out of the courts where they have to have more
Yeah, that's where the extra
It gives us
10
an idea, right, to see what the actual increase was in man hours.
That's why my question was how you felt we had increased as far as, not your workload so much, but our people. Because your workload increased because of the mandates that came down.
Correct.
Right, but, I mean, if we haven't been running real heavy on all of our arrests, we just kind of do the same group. It isn't like all of a sudden we're a whole criminal county, like some of them have exploded. And if you weren't anticipating that, then perhaps we could keep the cost down a little bit. I mean, you're still entitled to certainly your fair share of what you charge as far as being an attorney. But the other thing is our contract with you is a permanent thing. I mean, you count on that money all the time coming in. It isn't like a caseload where you're wondering whether I have a lot of cases or I don't. It's pretty even. So can you negotiate a little bit from the 170 down is what Kathy is asking.
And I think I've already answered that, yes.
Yeah, he said that he would.
Okay.
Yeah.
What kind of a figure can you throw
Well,
us?
and, my cost of living figures that I came up with were just pursuant to Google search as to what the cost of living has done since January of 2021. And I came up with 15.9%. I'm not an economist, so I don't know if the county commission agrees with that figure as to what has happened. I know in the media, of course, we see inflation figures at 7, 8, 9% for the last several months. So I think that over 2 years, 15.9% seems reasonable to me. 15.9% times 130,000 is 150. So that 150 was just to stay even with what I've had before. Like again, the other 20 was on top of the 150. That was because of the increased workload. I can propose 160. Only take 10 more for the extra workload that I have to do and the Sunday work. If that would help the commission make a decision.
Is that good with you, 160 for a year?
I like the 1 year, I really do. I hate to be in the middle of this thing. I'd like to get it over with and we'll look for it.
And that will give us an entire year to see what your actual increase is.
Yeah.
And, so we're not going at 24% is a lot.
And I'm glad you mentioned that because I'd forgotten about this. This just changed last week. Department of Indigent Defense said to me, where are your time on the detention hearings? And I said, well, I put them in a subcategory called timekeeping, or outreach under timekeeping. I know you guys aren't familiar with that, but they wanted to keep those separate from my main caseload. And then they called me up last week and said, we're not finding these on your main caseload. I said, because you told me not to put it there. You told me to put it in this outreach. And they said, oh, no. We've changed our minds. Now we want it in your main caseload. So what you have before you probably does not reflect these detention hearings.
Okay. That just did not seem right.
Yeah.
114 hours in a year? That's...
Well, not to complicate it, but it's like if we look at the hours, and I understand that that's a total, you said $1,500 an hour, but that's a staff that is also supporting other counties. What if we were just to hire base per hour an attorney to represent just Lander County defendants, and you pay them on an hourly basis? I'm just putting it out there.
No, I don't know, I don't think.
You could save yourself some money.
Well, certain counties do that, and then certain counties have made a county a public defender. And for instance, if you
I
have.
don't know if it'd justify an actual public defender with the numbers I'm looking at. but
Well,
it could be
you
my
could have,
ignorance.
you could have them do other things for the indigent population. There's a lot of things you can do with the county public defender. And I'm not suggesting you do that, I'm just trying to answer your questions.
You know, I don't have any problem paying somebody their, you know, what they ask for. And I have not heard one complaint about public defender. Nobody, you know, oh, I didn't get this, I didn't get that. So I have no problem paying people, I just, you know, 1 year for 160.
Would you consider extending it a year on the current contract or not? Because then it would allow us to see what more those numbers are, not just hypothetical, you know?
Well, I'm certainly working at a discount. I mean, because the cost of living is not taken into effect, so I'm actually earning less.
Well,
What
and
if
I
we
know
did like a
because,
COLA, like a 3% COLA? For the next year?
that be?
What's the inflation, isn't it? 7? Why not do the 7?
Fair, you know, because I understand the man hours that it does take for what he does, and I don't want to take advantage of that either. I'd like to find a happy medium where we can both live with it, because I don't want to undercut him or underrate him, but also we have to find something where we're fiduciary responsible to the taxpayers too. So, because it's insulting to undercut someone, so I think for one, yeah, I mean,
The one thing we can all agree on
yeah.
is.
I'll make a motion, I'm gonna do this, just because I wanna see where we are in a year. I'd like to make the motion that we accept the 160 for 1 year, and 1 year contract, we come back and see, have hard numbers, at what you're really doing, and then at that point, if we're overpaying you at that time, and we put it out to bid, then we're gonna know where our numbers are, but I also I wanna make sure that we have someone in place. I don't wanna undercut you, but I don't wanna overpay you either, so I make the motion for 160 for 1 year contract.
And it may be that you arrive at a point in the future where he wasn't paid enough and you need to increase, but at least you'll have the data.
I agree, so,
Okay, that's fair enough.
okay.
Okay.
JR seconded.
Kathy made the motion, JR seconded. Any public comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Nay,
Oh,
I just think 30,000, it should, I just think it shouldn't.
Okay.
That's mine.
That's in the record. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, now we're gonna have okay, number 6, University of Nevada Cooperative Extension and discussion of possible action to approve, disapprove the renewal of an agreement between Lander County and the University of Nevada Cooperative Extension Board of Regents and the Nevada System of Higher Education acting on behalf of the University of Nevada, Reno for the benefit of the University of Nevada Cooperative Extension. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Holly Gatsky, Cooperative Extension. I'm here to get our agreement that we've had ongoing continued. It's largely the same as in the past in that it's a relationship between us, which is what we should have going on between the university and the counties, to make sure that the county is engaged and knows what we're doing in extension, and in that we have things going. A quick comment in that I'll be coming back, or I'll send Andrew in to do a county report. We're happy in that we had a large number of clubs. I think we had I don't know, about 6, 7 extra clubs show up last summer. He's working hard on continuing that, so we have at least 12 clubs that happened last summer. We're figuring out what works, what time of year for our leaders, for the kids, and all of those types of things. Lois did a wonderful job, and we still poke and talk to her even though she retired. So those kind of relationships will continue, as well as now that we have the vacancy with Lois's position, we'll be contacting the county to make sure that, as indicated in the agreement, that we refill. I'll tell you that I'm holding back on that right now and not filling quickly because we're waiting to see how the legislation deals with a proposed return of 12% funds that we lost and a couple other line items that look promising to give us more money back. We kind of got shorted a couple of years ago, so we're swimming and dealing with that, and I would rather create a position that is long-term, that fits. I'm also going to be meeting with the university this week to look at different types of positions. They tie us to wanting a PhD or a master's type candidate. I think that limits our abilities of getting the right person. So I just thought I'd let you know I'll continue talking to you, but I'm getting the pieces of information and come to you and have a discussion because we want the best person for the job for Lander County. And we'll try frame that up in a new context. But I'll come back and talk to you about it. So just if you hear like, why are they not filling that? Why are they not filling that? I'm trying to do it better.
So Holly, is the only employee we have is Andrew?
Yes, right now.
He's running the whole show?
He's running the whole show.
Does he have a new title? Even if you don't give him extra money,
We're
sometimes you
giving
give
him a stipend to recognizing that he's got more duties on his plate taking care of the whole thing, and we recognize that's a difficult thing to do because when you're dealing with youth and 4-H, which is his passion and talents, and that he's got to be out of the office, so please keep that in mind, as well as that the office may not be always open because he works weekends and evenings and things like that. But yes, we're giving him a stipend to take on those extra responsibilities, which is important. But we do intend to find a solution to this. I just want to do it right, knowing exactly what long-term funding on the other side, our contribution to what happens in Lander County, so that we know we have solid money and we can put in. Right now, I could hire somebody to the end of June is all I can do. Nobody's going to want that position to the end of June. I can't get good candidates in that kind of scenario. So I will move forward because we're pretty confident that we can shake out the budget to make something more solid long term. And that's what we're looking for. And then the other side of things is I don't want to advertise being limited, which is what it's set up right now, for a master's or PhD only. And I got both things coming at me that is a bit of I don't think a good place to be to hire somebody that can do quality work.
So does that look doable, like in some of the rural areas like Lander, that we could reduce?
Yes, I
the
believe
requirement?
we just dealing with a university. They think only in academics, so it takes
We
discussions.
understand that, and tenure, right, and we understand that.
Yeah. So I think I've found a category. I'm going to be talking to Central HR to see if we can make that fit.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to say, I think that Andrew has rocketed. He does a wonderful job and goes above and beyond, and I'm so excited. I've heard nothing but wonderful things. And I just wanna make sure that he knows that and gets that recognition, because that is a hard job to do, one person. I think it was, worked better when there was the two of them, and I think the two of them worked very well together.
Right.
But he does a wonderful job, so I just wanted to make sure I let you know that.
I appreciate that. I figured that, but I appreciate hearing it from the local. Yes, definitely.
I don't have anything more.
And just so you know, this contract was sent to DA Herrera, ahead of time, so it's been reviewed. It's gone through our legal in the university system and through your legal side of things.
And I have reviewed it, I didn't see any changes.
Well, I didn't either, that's why I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss any
Except it was
changes.
it's still a 2-year contract.
Yeah.
And the county, the important part for the county commissioners is section 1 where the county agrees, and basically it's to pay if required the essential cost of adequate clerical and youth program personnel, utilities, travel, office expense, supplies, and equipment needed in the conduct of extension programs in the county. And the important part is not to exceed the yearly ad valorem tax collected for agriculture extension. It's technically their money that we hold on to and pay for services out of that money. And it's important that everybody knows that, both the public and the commission.
Well, I'd like to say thank you for the cooperative, and, I mean, I've worked with it for 8 years, and I really like what I've seen the last couple of years. And, you know, you said they were looking at having a PhD or a doctorate to fill it, and I think it's a mistake, because we need people to have interest in our local community, and that's where the change is, and that's what I see with Andrew, with Lois, is that we had locals that were interested in making a change, and you see that. So with that, I'd make a motion that we approve the renewal of the agreement between Lander County and the University of Nevada Cooperative Extension Board of Regents for the Nevada System of Higher Education, acting on behalf of the University of Nevada, Reno, for the benefit of the University of Nevada Cooperative Extension.
I'll second.
Brian made a motion, Kathy seconded. Any public comment?
I just got one quick thing, I hate to come up, but is there?
Come on up, Amy.
Amy, you gotta talk up there.
Sorry, okay. Would it be advantageous for the commission to write a letter of support for her about this doctorate degree? Because it really is going to, I don't know how much support you'll have going to the university, but if the commission says we need somebody who represents us locally, bachelor's degree, they're not gonna get a doctorate type person to
Yes,
come.
I think that's an
agree.
excellent
that's
idea.
something-
That's an
We
excellent.
can discuss that.
We'll put it on another
She can
agenda.
certainly say, make a comment.
Thank you. And thank you for the update.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much.
Okay, for discussion and possible action, approve, disapprove a contract between AM Engineering and Lander County. Come on down, Aaron.
Commissioner Clark,
Yes, sir.
when you get a chance, you might just put on the record that we are tabling item number 5, just to,
Oh, okay. We are tabling number 5 per request from Justice Court.
Sorry, good morning, commissioners. Good morning. Aaron Martinez, Lander County Engineer for the record. It's an absolute privilege to be in front of you today. November 18th, 2021, the County Commission appointed myself and my firm as the County Engineer of Record. Up to this point, it's just really been an amazing experience. I'd like to thank the staff and the County Commission through that 1 year. It's been absolutely wonderful to work side by side with you. As a business owner, I do understand how hard it is to find good staff and good team and people that actually care about the work product and things that go on a day-to-day basis. And I can absolutely say that Lander County has some of those people for sure. It's hard to find those type of work ethics, and it's really just been a real pleasure working next to them, so thank you. The item in front of you today is to request a modification to an existing agreement. That existing agreement has no expiration date. It has no restrictions on Lander County. This county commission can terminate that agreement at any time, and it does not restrict the county to any obligations or sourcing of engineering services. The contract updates I'll be talking to you about today are some insurance designation changes, updated scope of work, and an updated chain of command. There's been a lot of talk about cost increases and things like that, so I'll just put it out there right away. There is no cost increase in this contract, and we're actually giving you a 15% reduction on our hourly rates across the board. I'll kind of get into how we're able to achieve those cost savings, and but I wanted to make that known right away. So John Wayne tells us, who's AM Engineering, and make it quick, so I won't take us too much of your time. So AM Engineering is a professional engineering firm. We have professional land surveyors on staff. We do land planning, construction management, inspections. We also just finished up our materials laboratory certification. Our lab will now be nationally recognized as AASHTO accredited. We do a lot of asphalt, concrete, and soils analysis in that laboratory. That all goes inside with our design services. A little bit about myself. I'm heading into my 20th year in the engineering and construction industry. I know some of you that's a drop in the hat, but it definitely feels like I'm making some strides in my career, and I feel like I still have lots to learn, most certainly. I own and operate AM Engineering, and we're in our 10th year of operation. My firm's been working with Lander County since 2015. I've been fortunate enough to design and construct roughly $200 million of infrastructure across my career. I also own a small land development firm where we design, build, and occupy commercial and aviation facilities. So I not only design the facilities, but I've also am very rigorous on the construction side as well. I've built and permitted my own home. My wife's here with me today. She's my rock and everything. She helped tie most of that rebar. And so we've been very hands-on on the things that I've done, and I think the point of that is that these experiences have kind of aligned me to the position that I hold today, and every meeting that I'm into, I bring those experiences with me to those meetings, and I feel like that's what makes me an effective person to have around as a consultant, as an engineer, and a professional assisting you and your staff. When you hire AM Engineering, you're not just hiring me, you're hiring my staff. I have a few of those folks listed here. We have accountant that does certified payroll and controller who understands contracts. We have, like I said, professional land surveyors. We have, this group has answered questions for Lander County as it relates to business licenses, to building permit applications, to code requirements, survey practices. So when you're hiring us, it's not just me. Sometimes there's, my staff is involved, and as those requests come in, we address them as we can. Because I have an eclectic group of people, if Lander County asks my firm to do something, sometimes it's more cost effective that my administrative staff handles that. So maybe we only bill you $65 an hour. So we try to take every request into account, and we try to do it in the most efficient and cost effective manner we can do for the county. So the 2022 top initiatives, I would say to wrap it up, we had an extreme amount of department support, engineering development and building construction, planning department and planning commission, public infrastructure, and economic development. And that's right, engineering had a lot to do with economic development. When it comes to department support, like I said, in a small community, it's hard to find qualified staff. AM Engineering is a resource to Lander County when you need it. We help tune up your departments whenever you need, but when you don't need us, you don't pay for us. We're a time and materials contract, so we're not here to waste your time. And at the same time, when you do need us, we're there for you no matter what. I think the biggest factor that we bring to the table is institutional knowledge. It's hard when you lose staff, they walk out the door, that institutional knowledge goes away from you or with them. AM Engineering can kind of be your backbone infrastructure to institutional knowledge. We operate in the municipal side of things throughout my entire career. When things come up in the government side of things, as the county engineer role handles, I'm there to answer those questions. I believe that we've answered those questions properly and have guided Lander County into really limiting liability and protecting the decisions that are made on a department level. I'll kind of get into more of the checks and balances as how we've actually been able to do that. But overall, I think that the institutional knowledge is a big factor we bring to the table. I kind of look at Lander County as an NFL team. Currently, our majority of our star players have been in their position less than 5 years, including myself. This is my 1-year anniversary. I look at our team as really a big building phase, and I'm excited to kind of build and grow along with them. So from county management, I'm going to quickly go over these because I know your agenda items are extremely locked in. A lot on the plate today, so stop me at any time. We help county management on things like the lands bill, the Porter Group, grant writer requests, and I'm going to get into these a little more specifically. But on call, when the county management needs us or any of the administration folks need us, we're there. We've been modifying zoning ordinances and municipal code policy modifications. When it comes to public works, we've been heavily focused on creating the database. So the commission took action to create the Lander County Public Works database. Little update on that infrastructure, everything started to ship. So we're ahead of schedule. They told us 6 months it would take to ship those parts. We're ahead of schedule. We're hoping in January that consultant will be in here to put that program in place for that equipment, and we're hoping to start on that actively starting probably the end of January. So the Lander County database for all surveying and engineering infrastructure should start around that time. So I'm excited to see that. start to put that together. We worked with NDOT on its annual workshop this year. They kind of come to the table with some TAP grant program stuff, and with me being in my first year with the county as a county engineer, we weren't as teed up on some of those items, so I think next year when they come in, I think we'll be a little more prepared to maybe actually have projects in front of them that they can take seriously and place into their TAP grant program and start to maybe give us some supplemental funding when it comes to public works. The building department. One thing I've learned in my career is if you don't want to be liked, you join the building department. Our codes are about this thick.
Building department.
And we're always just telling people what the code is, and the code never is conducive with your budget or project timeline expectations. So we've really tried to make Lander County a pro-development county. There's nobody that I know of that is more pro-development than this county. I work with a lot of different municipalities. We've created the Monday development meetings. You can come here as a contractor. The county pays me to be there. We work with these contractors to answer questions for them, point them in the right direction. Just off the cuff, we've been able to pinpoint things like, hey, if you reduce this building X amount of square feet, you can eliminate the fire suppression requirements. So we're saving them hundreds of thousands of dollars by just looking at particular things and trying to outline that. So Lander County is really putting their best foot forward as we work with these contractors. We accept a slew of plans. Like a lot of contractors do not have an engineer on staff. They can't produce plans on their own. Lander County is a limited area with limited resources. So we know that, we work with them. We have accepted hand drawings to the best of their ability as long as it's safe and it meets code to a degree. We're being pro-development. So that's a decision that the building official makes ultimately, and that's the direction we've been given, is to be pro-development, work with people, and help this process be easier for them. Because when you go through plan review and you're trying to meet code requirements that are this thick and in pages, it's hard for your plans to really reflect everything in that code. So we're there to help them, not be a crutch or a stopping block, but truly a partner to promote construction in this area, because if we slow them down, they make less money. So we're all about getting things done. One of the largest plan reviews in this month that came in one day. The plan review went out the very next day. So we are trying to be Johnny on the spot on everything. And anyone that says otherwise, we'd love to meet with them in person to go over that. Really quick, we closed out over 300 open or expired permits. So the building department had just this slew of permits that were just not even active. So we went through and just cleaned everything up. We closed those permits out or expired those permits. So when Mr. Nelson come on board, it was actually a fairly easier group to look at, because it's like, okay, what's my open permits? And that was kind of one of the biggest things I focused on this year, was to do that. Here on this document, it says we did 86 plan reviews. We're probably over 100 right now. Currently, the building department has taken in 164 applications since the start of the second quarter. So the building department is actually very active. There's a lot going on, and their workload is now kind of able to be charted, because not every permit that came in went to actual permits. So we had no way of understanding what came in, what went out. So that's why I created what we call the BD system, which is the building department filing system. So if you see a number out there that says BD 22_01, that means the year 22, the building department, application number 1 that's come through that door. Again, we're at BD 22-164 as of yesterday evening, to give you an idea of how much application the building department has to address every day. We had a huge influx of hours in the contract. I gave you a brief outline of how many hours I allocated as your county engineer this year. 1,106 hours I was asked to be here. Quite a bit more than I expected, to be honest with you, but when someone asks me to step up as a team member, I'll do whatever it takes. You guys want me to go out here and shovel your sidewalks? I will. But whatever it is, I'll do it. And so we jumped in, helped out the building department when it's needed. We help out the planning department when it's needed. And when it's not, we're able to step aside. I think just kind of globally on that, what we've done is we've provided staff some building blocks, some good training, and I think the staff is able job and we've done the right thing. Kind of jumping quickly over to the planning department. Probably the biggest aspect of the planning department is, and I know I talked about this in my April update with you folks, there's some things that were going on with the planning department that really are some big red flags. One of them is there was easements and right-of-way being relinquished by Lander County Planning Department unbeknowingly. Staff gets a map, that map comes into staff looks at it and says, hey, that looks like a pretty good map. Well, in reality, when that map got recorded, that map had information on there that said, we're gonna relinquish this easement or this right-of-way, and maybe that map moved that right-of-way over to here. Well, that could all be fine and dandy, but the policy and procedures of this county is this board here, this commission, is the only one that can relinquish those easements or right-of-way. So it was really kind of an unbeknowingly thing on staff's end that kind of created that situation. So how we were able to kind of close the door on that is we developed our own staff reports. And I'll quickly go to one of those staff reports. I developed a staff report template for home occupation, special use permit, division of land, zone change, master plan amendment, tentative map, request to combine parcels, application for variance, roadway abandonment, parcel map approval, boundary line adjustment, conversion to acreage. So what does that staff report look like? Well, it looks something like this. It basically gives the staff the nuts and bolts of what's in that application. Once the planning department creates that template and adjusts it to the actual application, it then goes to every department in the county. That department has a sign-off sheet, they write approved, not approved. So now staff is not on an island, one person sitting in an office. It is now circling the wagons, which is exactly what county management asked for. And so it's kind of circling the wagons to bring everybody at the table, no one's on an island, and we all kind of have an understanding of what's going on. So again, those templates have been created, and I think they're working quite well. And again, they'll continue to tweak them and add them and grow to them. Yes, sir.
So what you created were checks and balances.
Little bit, that's right.
And before this, the building department was just signing off on these things without bringing it to the commission?
No, it would go in front of the planning commission. So the planning department would get this record of survey map or this parcel map. They would get that map in and they would say, okay, well, my rules say that I need to take this to the planning commission for approval. And they'd say, okay, great, and it'd go to the planning commission, and heck, that parcel map might even come to the county commission, but no one is really saying this easement's being vacated or this right-of-way is being vacated. So the misstep is not understanding what's in those maps and really the implication of what that means. Does that make sense? So it wasn't the staff.
Unfortunately, it does. It makes sense that somebody didn't have the skills needed to do what they were supposed to be doing.
And again, staff at that time was probably just doing the best that they knew how. And when you're on an island and again, guys, in this type of work, you can't train to work in the municipal government. I mean, other than reading the municipal code and understanding the policies of this county and then having an engineering construction background, it's hard. So we are all as staff learning on the fly. And so I think that you only learn by your mistakes, and I think if someone was there as a seasoned veteran, they could have said, hey, these are the things you gotta watch for. And the county management has built a great team where all these folks have that now. They really do understand what they're looking for, and we continue to grow on that training. And so right now, Lander County's NFL team is looking pretty good. Okay, so I did talk about economic development, and so what does that mean? Well, we are trying to not only take small projects and turn them into an economic impact, like you've seen with the Safe Routes to Schools project. It's a public infrastructure project, but it helps the frontage of my property, right? Me as a resident, you go driving through there, it beautifies that area, which curb appeal is the #1 real estate piece, right? And so we're trying to use capital improvements to do things like that. The county management has had a rigorous approach to supplemental funding. The county management wants to locate funding that doesn't have strings attached and that can supplement our capital improvement budget. So what did we focus on this year? Well, we focused on the ARPA funding called ARPA, which is the American Recovery Plan from the Biden administration. The health clinic, Dr. Wilcourt's here, the Lander County went after several million for that particular initiative. We also went after earmark funding requests. How many commissioners truly understand what earmark funding requests are? Honestly, it's a new one to me. So we actually have delegation that works annually that says, hey, I've got this list of earmark funding requests, and they start just kicking projects out the door.
What's the Buffalo Valley Track?
That is a convention and tourism item.
Okay.
So the earmark funding requests, the way those work is, again, there's a list of projects that the delegation takes into account, and they can so choose to issue money in that regard. One of those is the Lemaire building, which they've said we've received some funding on. We have yet to see the check, but maybe there is some hard work being reaped, the benefits being reaped from our hard work. We have yet to see that funding come through, but we've been awarded $1 million that we know about. Again, this is my first year doing this with Lander County, so next year I think we're gonna be even more teed up. Our earmark funding requests, we've already gone through all these projects, so now we have them ready to submit to this delegation in all the right format that they need, the fancy estimates, to make them take us more seriously and potentially give us more project funding. Another line of the economic development is we created the Business Improvement Program. We call it BIP, which is a terrible acronym. The LEDA group will probably change that, I'm sure. The idea is again, trying to take funding and create a more harmonic environment in Lander County by investing in our people. So how do we do that? This program is just an idea. I have sculpted it and worked with LEDA to develop it, and they're gonna take it and run whatever direction they see fit, and this commission will eventually see that from LEDA coming in front of you. The idea of the Business Improvement Program is any business in Lander County can apply for a grant. That grant would then be matched by Lander County for between $5,000 and $25,000 if the county so chooses. Again, this is all hypothetical. Then that business has to improve their property. We have created a very detailed list as to how you do that. Everything from purpose and project goals, all the way down to funding requirements, application period, the actual completion of the business improvements, eligible properties, ineligible properties, eligible improvements, bidding and construction permits, grant review, economic development authority approval, distribution, and then also a checklist that kind of finalizes like how these things are supposed to go, when does funding get implemented, and who implements that funding. We've integrated from county management's request. The building department is to kind of work through the construction phase to finalize these items to guarantee, hey, you spent $5,000 in stucco, yes, you've done the $5,000 in stucco. Long story short, this business improvement program is geared to any business in Lander County to basically apply for a grant and to beautify their building, including parking lot or landscaping. Any questions on that? Okay, updated scope of services. Geez, how long am I gonna take on this? All right, so, one of the updated scope of services on the contract is an updated chain of command. There's been a lot of people coming to us for requests. We just wanna solidify that. The county manager, the public works director, and really the building official are the three folks that should be giving us direction to perform work. So anyone that needs something done, they would go to those three to then issue us a request to do work. The only thing that's changed on travel, and I'm gonna get into this in a little bit, we are only requesting that we be paid for travel if we leave Battle Mountain and go to like Austin. I've traveled to Austin a few times, and we'd like to be reimbursed for that. The insurance update is we have Chapter 1404 in definitions. If you look under there about commissions and public officials, it states in there that the county engineer is truly a public official. And what we would like to do is request that the county commission adopt us into their Nevada Public Agency Insurance Pool. We've worked directly with staff to confirm this. And really what this does is, I've been acting as your public official in several areas. I've signed certificates of occupancy for the building department, and so those types of actions are not my typical private practice. This is me acting as a public official for Lander County. We have confirmed again with staff that this Adoption is standard and had already been answered previously for a previous county engineer or county contractor like myself. So I still hold a $1 million professional liability insurance and a $2 million general aggregate liability insurance. So this has nothing to do with us not having insurance and anything like that. What it has to do is my insurance company found out that I am representing Lander County as a public official, and they have a big problem with that. And so with that, if this modification of language bringing us into your insurance pool when I act as your county official, then that satisfies them.
Let me just ask on that one, because, you would be in your vehicle, but you're on county business, just like we would be in our private vehicle, okay? And you're on county business, so therefore, Pool Pack's okay with something like that?
Yes, Pool Pack is who we verified it with, and I believe that we've done this for Bob Morley as a county surveyor.
Yeah.
And
I
so
think
it's, this falls into the same category.
Okay, so it just adds you to our county when you're representing us as our county engineer,
That's right.
that's all.
And if I'm in my vehicle, it's actually going to be my
Okay,
vehicle.
well, for example, okay, we have a separate contract with you, for the Austin realignment. You're not our county engineer,
That's
you
right.
are our contractor, so therefore you're not covered,
Exactly.
even though it's county business.
That's right. We're talking
It depends what
strictly-
hat you're wearing, I got it.
Yes, ma'am. That is exactly
Okay, go
right.
ahead.
Okay. Any other questions on the insurance? That is a big part of how I'm giving you your 15% break also is we're saving some money on our insurance. We got hit really hard last year, over 50,000, just because of my role. So just want to make sure you're aware of that. Okay. Before I get away from planning and building, I just wanted to say that you know, Cole, April, and Lindsay have taken on the training and done a great job with these departments. Cole possesses many qualities of intelligence, leadership, and kindness, ethical and hardworking. It's been a huge relief having him on board. I've been asked to take a lot on with the building and planning department, and it's made my job more enjoyable having him here. So we're very lucky to have him. I want to say publicly, thank you so much for that, Cole. Going back to the economic development side of things, again, in this contract here, it's slotted that LEDA, Planning Commission, and County Commission do not have a set budgetary item. I was asked to give a very specific detailed budget outlay. There is zero funding allocated for County Planning Commission, LEDA, or County Commission. So that's something for this commission to consider. If they did ask for me to attend for a particular reason, that would have to be an unbudgeted item, and that can be changed, but that is currently how it's been broken out. So again, the updated services, the way the contract's written is I broke it down to kind of what we were asked to do 20 to 2021, and then in the updated services component, I've broken that down to be more specific to, again, what we've been asked to do and what the county code requires the county engineer. As an example, 12.01030 requires the county engineer to maintain county roads. Record drawings are supposed to be approved by the county engineer, chapter 16 improvement requirements. So there's very specific municipal code that funnels specific items to be checked by the county engineer. I have went through all the municipal code, working with the county to re-up those this year. And so we were able to bring those in front of you so you could see by code what is required by the county engineer. Moving on.
So Aaron, let me ask on that then, with the amounts that you were doing approximate of what you think our new hours would be and your cost accordingly.
Absolutely.
So, what happens when we hit those hours? More than that, does that come back to us, or is this contract just gonna continue pro rata on what you had already included for those hours?
So that's completely up to you. If it got to a point where we had gone above the allocated hours, we could absolutely come in front of you, or staff could just authorize us to perform that work, and they would, how they figure that out on their budgetary end, I'm not certain about. From our end as a company, we'll be there when you ask us. If we go over that allocated, the management would be made aware immediately. And then if they'd like us to come in front of you for more funding allocation, we can do that. So that's,
So are you gonna provide us, say, monthly or quarterly, where your hours are?
so right now, we're currently doing that on a monthly basis currently.
And the hours, so you know, okay.
Yes.
And let me ask, do we have any plans right now that go before our planning department that we send out somewhere else for a plan review?
I think you mean building department?
I mean, when people come in for us to review their plans, we used to send them out for a plan review.
Yes, and now AM Engineering does that.
And now everything's been done with Aaron.
Correct.
Okay, I wondered if we had any opportunity in the last year to send them out to anyone. No.
No, and that was part of the issue that we had, is we had multiple opinions coming from multiple sources that didn't match county code. So we wanted it to go with the county code and come from one source where we could hold one
Well, I
place
think it's a great
accountable.
idea. I just didn't know if we'd had any, that's all.
Yes, and then to speak a little bit to the amount that you're referring to, that is all upon request, so it's not like he just bills us every month for X amount of dollars until he meets that. He
Right.
has to be, it is an hourly
Just-
upon
It's
request.
not a
and then
contracted amount, it's a set amount.
And then in this contract, it makes it so it's approval by myself, Donnie, or Colt are the only three that approve and ask him to move forward with, set
Okay.
goals.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. If you want to go ahead and finish, and then I'll
No,
ask my
those are great
questions. Go ahead.
questions. Thank you very much. I'll just quickly go over the last amount of cost savings. So basically, when you hire a company, it's a business partnership. And when Lander County hires that business, you're expecting them to be upfront and to really not nickel and dime you. And so with that, John Wayne says, hey, I love a great company, but I don't want them to nickel and dime me. So where's some cost savings here? Well, one of those cost savings is we printed $450 worth of printing stuff for Lander County this year. We didn't bill one of those printing costs. It's my company, so I can do what I want. And what I wanna do is be a company that I wanna work with. Don't be sending me a bill all the time for miscellaneous stuff. One of those is printing costs. A lot of firms, they print one page, then invoice goes out. We have not done that once. We've never billed 1 hour of overtime. I've always been proud to just get 8 hours of pay for however many hours it takes me to do that job. There's times where I'd be here at 7 in the morning, and planning commission at 6 PM. I would be getting home till 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. So never once have we billed an overtime rate. Never once have we billed an hour of travel. When I come to and from Lander County, I'm your hometown kid. I eat that time. So if it's an 8-hour day here, it's a 10-hour day for Aaron Martinez, and you pay for 8 hours of those. I've never billed 1 hour of fuel reimbursement or wear and tear on my vehicle. So between travel time and wear and tear, I'm staring at about $50,000 in true costs that you would probably see from other firms. And so we're definitely putting our best foot forward there in terms of the cost savings. So hopefully that answers all your questions, and I'm happy to take any more you might have.
Any questions?
No, I appreciate the service and, that you've done here. Truly, you've been hugely helpful. And I wanna make sure I let you know that you are very much appreciated.
I appreciate that, thank you very much.
I'd like to say thank you, and that I see a well-oiled, cohesive machine, which in 8 years of doing this, I don't know if I've ever seen it so, just a willingness to work together and everybody being on the same page, and before it was just so compartmentalized, it's like it's.
It's such an interesting way to look at it, because at one time, we decided we needed a county engineer, and we hired a county engineer. And that's exactly what we got, a county engineer as an employee. But when we hire you, we get your whole office staff and so many more employees with their knowledge and expertise along with you. And that's a very interesting concept. I think one of the things that I've appreciated more than anything, and we don't, as commissioners, we don't get in the nitty-gritty of the daytime work. That's not what we do. But we certainly know the overall impressions that we have had when you have come before this board with your input on things. And one of the key things for me has been the liability. I just so appreciate your knowledge and expertise, keeping us on top of things with our ordinances and our rights and such. So I think that's so important. The rest has been, like you said, we've got a lot of new people, and new people need experiences and training. And so in the input of that, to have your expertise there again, kind of doing everything you've done, hopefully that year is behind us. And next year we'll really see a lot more benefits of not just the training and where we are, but where we can go. I think it's exciting, and I loved your proposal of what you gave us. And the only comment I really have is on, well, planning and LEDA both. Planning really needs your oversight. And not necessarily you'd have to drive in every time, but if you could arrange to be on the phone, we might want to build that in, because I know, I can't think of anything they would be looking at that shouldn't have his overview. Does that make sense? Maybe you can look at the agenda ahead of time and give your input, maybe something like that with our manager, or be on the phone.
And that is where we're covering it in our staff reports. So if there's something that comes up in a staff report, that maybe over what our current staff can, they're like, well, I better question this. Then we reach out to Aaron
So
and
when
his
staff goes
team.
to the planning report, goes to the planning committee, they have that.
Correct.
So we already have that, because that's a key thing. And all your exciting things about economic development with LEDA, we can probably do the same thing. If they need you, they could call you and arrange for you to be on that meeting, or staff can handle it. Great, because those are two things I didn't want to exclude.
A little analogy, how does it make a deal? You shake, and when you feel like you got the better deal, you go back, but not in front of the guy, you're like, yeah, that's how I feel. So it's exchange and abundance. I do appreciate it, Aaron.
Absolutely.
And on LEDA, going to LEDA, we had a mess with those benches, and he helped us hugely on that. That was I don't know how many year adventure they tried getting that, and we needed an engineer, and they didn't know they needed an engineer. And I just wanted to tell you how much we appreciate you helping us with that and getting that, because we could have turned out a lot worse than it did. So you are much appreciated for your help.
Thank you everybody for your comments. This too.
So the only real concern on the contract at all to me is the fact that it doesn't have an expiration date. It's not a year's contract, it's open. And I know there's pros and cons on that, so I really would like to hear some of it, especially our county manager.
So
Because I like the idea that we can review it in a year, and say, hey, this has worked, it hasn't worked. But if we hire you as a county engineer, as an employee, so to speak, does that have other connotations?
So he's a county engineer of record, so it's not supposed to have an actual deadline. We just bring it back before you yearly to make sure, and we can exit it anytime we'd like, and actually bring any of his services on there. We can get rid of any day and bring a different engineer of record on. So that's why it doesn't have an expiration.
Okay,
because
I don't want it to slip through the cracks, and we have a way of sometimes missing a contract somewhere along, and so I just kind of like the idea of a date, I guess.
But if it's of a record and you have an out, then.
Yeah, so, and that's why it doesn't, just because it's an engineer of record, and we have to have one by law. We have to have a county engineer of record, so it's best to not put a date on it and then be going against the law by not having an engineer of record. It's best to just keep them, and then if you ever want to get rid of them, you bring another one on, and you stay up to date with the law. But something that I would like to say to Aaron, this is to his credit, because you don't see this in the industry anymore, and it's been, trust me, we've had some very candid conversations, and we've had some, and it's hard to build working relationships when you have such candid conversations from time to time. And Aaron's been great about being able to sit down, and he has literally built the product that put him out of work. A lot of these staff reports and these things like this, it would be a lot easier if he did not create them and just happened to be the man that can bring this to the table. But he's created them, gave them to the county, and in the process, he's built himself out of work, which is, sometimes you go to him, you're like, hey, Aaron, we got the right guy for the job now. We have Colt back here who's killing it. We have April. We have all these people on our team now that are just taking this stuff and running with it. We're good to go. And he's like, man. But the reality of it is that it's a testament to what Aaron has been for the county. He stepped in when we had nobody in the building department and ran it for us, which speaks to a little bit of the billing that we got, but at the same time, we were only paying for the 8 hours a day. We paid for no travel. It was just like having an engineer right here in Battle Mountain. So with that, I just want the community and everybody to realize what he's really done. He's put Lander County first at every corner, and it's greatly appreciated. You guys will see some of these buildings start stepping back because he's built some of this structure to put himself out of work. We're happy to have him on the team, and we want to keep him there. But it's not something you see very often in today's world where somebody builds himself out of work. So thank you, Aaron. I appreciate that more than you know. Because it's all to make us look good. I mean, that's the sad part is he does all this and it makes me and my staff look really good, but it's coming from him and his team, and it's for the love of our county. So thank you.
He wants his life back.
This is my life.
This the filing system that you made and the template, is that your personal intellectual property?
It is, that's from starting my
Okay.
company, man. I started it from scratch and it was like, what's my filing system like?
That's right.
And I'm a digital guy, everything's gotta be on the computer.
That is Aaron's. And if he leaves, he can take it with him.
No, sir.
It's bought and paid for.
If it's his,
So legally,
Non-proprietary.
I just want to run it through, you have reviewed it, so legally we're all okay
Oh, yes.
with the type of contract it is? Okay.
I've worked with him since he came on board, and he's been a wonderful asset to Lander County.
Boy, you guys are all too kind, I don't know what's going on here.
Well, yeah, you don't get it every day, so enjoy. But also Lance.
That's right, that must be it.
Also, Lance reviewed this, and that's our attorney out of Vegas that's doing part of the lands deal up there in Austin, and he was good with it as well.
Okay.
He did have questions on the same thing you guys did, which is the insurance, and so we answered that with the pool. I think we're good to go.
Okay, with
Well, I
that,
think it's wonderful what you've done with you and Colt have done with the building department, because it's changed a lot in the last year. People aren't just throwing up garbage and calling it good.
yeah.
Well, all your accolades are just exactly that. You don't get paid for them, so that's your bonus from us.
Absolutely. Well, and to your point though, if you really wanna see your place go to, you know what, in the handbasket quick, you take away the building department. They're out there being the last line of defense for kind of what's acceptable and what's not in the construction industry. And if your mom or dad goes and buys a house, you're hoping that, hey, that house is kind of built to some sort of substantial conformance. So he's out there beating the lines every day, and like I said, it's a thankless job on that end. So again, my hat's off to those guys, because their staff is taking it, planning, building especially, they're taking a lot of the heat that the public brings on some of these issues. So definitely my hat's off to them.
I gotta make one
Well, if
comment.
everybody's okay.
Okay. Out of respect for Aaron, I have to make a comment. Just moving forward, Colt Nelson for the record, continuous improvement is the fifth value of our staff. Aaron's part of that staff, and we can't continue to improve without a safeguard like Aaron. The events and conditions that come at me every day, I'm on the phone sometimes in the field saying, Aaron, can you help me with this? And he's right there. So that safeguard is invaluable for us to move forward. It really is, and that's why we built the relationship and continue to build it. But even the systems we have in place now, I think, are just gonna get better and better as we go forward, because we have all the pieces in place, and it's a big part of why I think you'll keep people here too, because we have a good system around us and good management and a good team. Like you say, the NFL team, we're gonna be going into the playoffs here pretty soon, right? So it's, we're getting better and better as we go, and I just can't thank you enough for all that you bring to us.
You bet.
Can I interrupt this time? This is Louis Lanny in Austin. I'm speaking on behalf of Aaron. After what I've listened to today, I don't think there's really much I can add to it, other than you've got a licensed professional who's got good human relations, people in town, and he's in a position to help. He's helped keep us in the planning commission out of liability and ethics problems. Don't let him go. Hang on to him.
Thank you, Louis. I make a motion that we approve the contract with AM Engineering and Lander County.
I'll second.
Any public comment? Really? All in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take a 5-minute break, and, can you wrap things up in a half an hour there, Mr. Rendell? If you are, I'll give you a note for Jake Kramer.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
Muted.
I'll tell you about that. Okay, we're gonna skip to, number 12. so that
Unmuted.
Dr. Wilcourt and Brandy can get back to work. Update from Robin Wilcourt with Lander County Community Health Center regarding respiratory illnesses 2022, 2023. Thank you, Doctor. Good morning.
Good morning. Yes, I'm Robin Wilcourt, and I thank you very much, and also I thank you for your graciously allowing me to step ahead of you. This is just brief, but it's, I think, very important, what I have to say today. We're now 3 years into the COVID pandemic, and while the number of new cases has declined remarkably over the course of the last few months, the numbers are still high, and we're now facing an issue where we have 4 additional new viruses coming into the community that we've recognized, and this is happening worldwide and across the United States as a whole. The mortality rate from COVID has declined dramatically, but paradoxically now, the bulk of the deaths and hospitalizations are in people who've been multiply vaccinated. Now, our experts really told us in very strong terms that that would not be the case. So it's time to look at what's happened worldwide. We've now got so much data coming in from all over the world. It's no longer conjecture, what I'm about to tell you. These are facts, and I think they're very important to understand as the background to understanding what's coming next with the potential pandemic we're going to face right now with the new lot of viruses that have been unleashed in the community. Did we learn anything much from the last 3 years? The honest evaluation of that is probably not. We are still hearing the same stories being told by our authorities about the dangers of COVID, the way we should be approaching COVID, and what they're telling us is absolutely contrary to what the facts have shown to be the case, as the facts have evolved over the last 3 years, and we have, as I said, great data now. And so I want to get down to this, what we were told, what actually has happened, and where we go in the future as we prepare for the next pandemic. Obviously, we've all been let down terribly by people we thought we could trust to give us guidance. As a result of much of this bad information and very inappropriate actions taken by our authorities, many of us found our careers were shredded. We lost a lot of valuable time, and our children have suffered dramatically and will never, ever get the time back that they lost during the lockdowns. And clearly, you know, we've got a state of division, civil division in the country. It's worldwide. I'm in contact with my colleagues all over the world, and the same thing is happening everywhere. And we scratch our heads and we can't believe what's happening. We're looking around and seeing behaviors, admonitions, authoritarian behavior that leaves us perplexed because it doesn't seem to make sense. And there's actually a good reason for that. And I was going to present a video today on why we are in the position that we're in. I'm going to do that at another time. But I think it's very important for us to understand why we are waking up every day, scratching our heads, and not understanding what seems to be rubbish happening around us, nonsense. And when it doesn't make sense, there has to be a reason why it doesn't make sense. And I'm hoping to be able to present that video somewhere later on. But one of the biggest things that happened, and I think we all recognize this, that the what I call the medical pharmaceutical industrial complex, which includes drug companies, hospitals across the country, hospital administrations, and then doctors got dragged into this mess of misinformation and couldn't extract themselves from it, particularly the medical profession. I think that the most discouraging thing that's happened, as far as I'm concerned, is watching my colleagues just mouthing untruths. Maybe they really believe what they're saying, but all around us the data are showing that what they're currently espousing, which is there is no effective treatment for COVID, we'll just use COVID as an example, and that if you keep getting multiply vaccinated every few weeks and few months, you won't get sick and you won't die. Well, the facts are all around the world that that's just not true. We now know that 96% of hospital admissions and deaths are people who are in the multiply vaccinated status. But you tell that to your medical colleagues anywhere and they say, no, that's not true. It's only the unvaccinated people that are getting sick and dying. But those are not the facts, and health authorities all over the world in each country now have accumulated massive amounts of data to show that that is not the case. So even common sense would tell you that when polio vaccines were administered, we didn't see polio pop up. It went away. We did the same thing with smallpox. And with almost every major illness that we have attempted to control at a public health level with vaccines, we've been incredibly successful. We didn't hear that you had to come back and have a third and fourth polio vaccine, etc., etc. Just, it didn't happen because the vaccines that we had were effective. Here we have watched for the first time one of the greatest epic public health failures in all of human history. And still people are insisting that we keep doing the same thing. So I just want to run through a couple of things that we were told in the beginning. We were told that masks would stop the spread of the disease. Every single study that's been done as a randomized, properly controlled trial has shown that was not the case. And when you go into any public place and watch people with masks on, you can understand why they won't work, because people keep touching their masks. The moment you have done that, you have broken the whole chain of sterility, and now you've made yourself a potential infector of somebody else. I've watched people in restaurants take their masks off and put them on the tables. This has broken the whole chain. And still we were told, no, you need to put your masks on. Well, people don't know how to use them. And it was Anthony Fauci, and I have to quote, people start saying, should I wear masks? Now, in the United States, there is absolutely no reason whatsoever to wear a mask. Anthony Fauci in 2020, March. Then right after that, we were told, actually, no, you do need to use masks, and maybe even 2 at a time. So we were left with not really having any good information there. There is no study at the moment, and there are no exceptions in any of the studies showing that masks worked. We also now have an increase in what's called excessive deaths. These are deaths that are not attributable to any known cause. They are huge. We have a 25 to 40% increase in unexplained deaths, elevated excess deaths around the world. It depends on which country you look at. In some places it's as low as 20%, other places it's high as 41%. These are figures that have come out from the USA, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, UK, and countries in Europe. They can't explain the deaths. We can only leave you to conjecture what might be the cause of these, but they are not attributable to anything that people can put their finger on. I have a graph here showing the excess deaths in Australia through 2020, 2021, and the first few weeks of 2022. I know you won't be able to see this clearly from here, but this little low one is the normal rate background, jumping to the blue one, which is a higher rate, and red is the current situation today. All unexplained deaths. For Australia, a small country of 25 million people, the excess death rate is 1,356% increase over 2019. That's a huge number, huge number.
And these people, they have autopsies and...
Yes, and there's clear what's going on. They have autopsies, they're finding clots, blocked arteries. Yeah. The people who were most at risk from dying from COVID were those who were 80 years of age and above. The average death rate, age for deaths with COVID was 78 years. The average age for deaths in the United States in the population that doesn't have COVID is 78 years. The death rate for people under the age of 50 was minuscule. But the problem here is that that's the group of people we're seeing the excess deaths in, which leads you to conjecture, and I can only say it's conjecture, although I have colleagues all over the world who are yelling the story that I'm telling you today, that those excess deaths are clearly from the vaccines. There is no other reasonable explanation. You'd have to come up with some postulate that there is a virus out there that's killing people and we haven't identified it. I think that's a silly proposition, and I think we just have to come to this conclusion. Just recently, a colleague of mine by the name of Dr. Aseem Malhotra was interviewed on Tucker Carlson, and it was possibly one of the best interviews I've ever seen. I know Aseem Malhotra. He is Britain's leading cardiologist. And he came from a viewpoint that everybody should be vaccinated in the beginning because he could see nothing wrong with the vaccines. And then his father, who was absolutely healthy and who'd had massive cardiac workup just for his own well-being just weeks before, died. And the autopsy showed that his coronary arteries were absolutely blocked. They weren't weeks before, but they were now. And that does not happen in normal circumstances.
Blocked with what?
Blocked with clots.
Clots.
We're finding clots in people all over the place. We have myocarditis and myocardopathy in children, unheard of. We have deaths in athletes, and this is very interesting because this is being looked at very carefully. We've seen the deaths. It's huge. You know the numbers. You've seen the pictures. You've seen the videos. You've seen the reports. Young, healthy men and women, mostly men, dropping dead in the middle of some sporting event. And we're told it's natural and normal. We know that's not true. We know that's just not true. What is causing it is clearly the myocardopathy and myocarditis, and they're out there, and when you have myocardopathy and myocarditis and you are exercising strenuously, the heart goes into an arrhythmia and you drop down dead. That's what happens. And that's clearly what's taking place here. But our authorities are trying to tell us that it's normal for young 16 to 40-year-old healthy male athletes to drop dead. Again, your brain tells you that's not true. But we're being told this. So those are these background things that I wanted to prime you with, that we have gone out of our way to do nothing good. When you go to a hospital today, typically, you will be told if you have COVID, there is nothing we can do, go home. And when your lips turn blue and you can no longer breathe properly, come back. If you do, you are most likely to get a drug called remdesivir, be intubated, and that will instantly give you an 80% death rate. Now, we can do better than that. Studies from many countries now, we have 79 studies from 766 scientists on 85,000 patients in 27 countries doing the FLCCC and the American Frontline Doctors protocols. And what do we get? We're seeing a death rate plummet from the background. When you don't treat people, we reduce the death rate by up to 80%. How is that? Ivermectin with vitamin D, vitamin C, zinc, and antioxidants reduce the death rate. It's been absolutely proven. And the thing that's so demoralizing for me, as somebody who would do anything to save a life, is to see my colleagues tell you when you go and get help for COVID, there's nothing we can do. There is. And I want to get the message out loud and clear that preliminary studies suggest that this protocol works for almost all respiratory viruses. That includes the flu, which leads me to now tell you, In our community, we now have influenza A, influenza B, respiratory syncytial virus, which mostly used to affect children, but it's killing adults at the moment. It's here, and we have COVID, and we have influenza B. We have 5 of them right now in Lander County. And I want our citizens here to know they do not have to be told just to go home and get really sick and come back when your lips turn blue. They need to be armed with the knowledge that they can get treatment. And I'm here to tell you, I will prescribe these substances. They are not banned. You've seen where the FDA and the CDC are now backtracking and said, oh, we didn't say you couldn't prescribe those things. Like hell they didn't. They most certainly did. But I want you to know you can get these substances here. People need to know that. They need to know that they can protect themselves by taking zinc, vitamin C, vitamin D, and the antioxidants that are out there. And we need to be ready for this and not let our citizens down and have them die needlessly. I watched deaths happen that didn't need to happen. I know I saved a few lives here in Lander County by doing absolutely this protocol. And I'm stunned that I have colleagues who still turn away and go, there's nothing you can do, you need another bloody injection. That is just not true. So I'm going to leave it at that. At some point in here, I would like to expand on this sometime in the new year, but I want our citizens to know they do not have to be told there is no hope, go home and die. Thank you.
I appreciate that, Doctor. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Any questions?
I think the only thing that I was hoping Dr. Wilcourt would touch on is they are doing testing down there, I believe now.
Yes, we're doing the testing. We can test for vitamin D. We are a prescribing entity. Our office can prescribe all of these things for you.
Okay.
Well, for me, it was a big red flag when the governor of Nevada locked up all the hydroxychloroquine into a prison cell. And I mean, it didn't make any sense. And you and I sat with Guru real time and we talked about the ivermectin and what was going on in India, and it was saving thousands of people every day.
Correct.
But yet, no, don't do it here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any public comment? Come on up, Art.
Art Aiton for the record. Would it be possible to get Dr. Wilcourt's reports and notes that he did for the community that didn't show up and make a copy of that so we can have our families read that?
Can we get a copy of your presentation?
I'll make it.
Okay. I was thinking along the same lines, Art.
And I think just so everybody knows that there is a protocol that was put in place by our health board, this commission, that does have the recommended doses of, vitamin A, B, C, D, whatever else is in there, that we make readily available to anybody in the public as well. It's kind of just a safety protocol that does, and we aren't here to create any division. People want to do what they want to do. We're all for freedom of choice.
Okay, now we'll go back to the Endow presentation number 8.
So, if you can hear me, I would like to make a comment regarding Dr. Wilcourt's presentation.
Dr. Ross, you were very broken up, and we are on to the next agenda item.
Okay.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thanks for having me. Bobby Jones, Nevada Department of Wildlife for the record. Is this?
You gotta press the button. There we go.
Bobby Jones, Nevada Department of Wildlife for the record. Bert was nice enough to invite me to come talk to you today. I'm going to talk about 2 documents, hopefully that you have. They're each over 200 pages long, so please, if you want to grill me, feel free. I won't be able to answer everything, but I'll do the best that I can. Just to start out, because I'm maybe an unfamiliar face, I grew up about a half hour west of here. I live in Reno, Nevada, happily married. We have dogs, garden, hunt, kind of all the outdoor stuff, and I'm going to talk a bit about that today from the state perspective. But Nevada Department of Wildlife, I'm sure you guys are well aware of the agency. I bring up the mission when I start just to point out today that conserve, manage, protect wildlife that is your wildlife on your behalf. And we do that for everyone. And today I'm going to hit on a couple of things in the recreational and economic benefits section of our mission. And I also usually highlight just, we do all kinds of stuff, habitat restoration after fire, wildlife survey work, outreach, engagement, community events, free fishing day. These are things that are typical, even though I'm going to be talking to you from a little bit different role that I figured I should say right off the bat. My title is Outdoor Connection Coordinator. It's my job to help connect more people to nature, make sure the department is engaging and serving broader audiences, and making, hopefully, you do the first two and you have enhanced conservation throughout the state. These are the two documents. I hope you guys didn't go to sleep reading these, or if you did, crack them open. I'm going to get into them a little bit, but the first is the Finding Pathways to Conservation Relevancy Survey, and the second is hunter expenditures and kind of a hunting economics report for the state, and then I'll cycle down to specifically Lander County. And I'm sorry, I should have said it earlier, please stop me if you have any questions at all. I'm going to start with the survey and the project as a whole. It's known that the department serves the hunting and fishing public. We manage hunting and fishing resources, licenses, all of those things, and then we're also good at being biologists. We did this project to better understand the rest of our public, including people who hunt and fish like myself, but also the rest of Nevadans, and specifically a few target groups. So project, we built a diverse team, and when I say diverse team, I mean staff that have been with the agency a few months, staff that have been with the agency for a few decades, all of our divisions. We found out that our leadership team kind of supported us in the project, and our relative weakness was we might not be good at engaging specific audiences. We interviewed different groups that represented the three that we chose, and the three that we chose were young adults and young families, the Hispanic and Latino population, and people who recreate outdoors but aren't primarily wildlife focused, so not hunting, fishing, wildlife viewing. And I'm going to dive into a bit of the population survey results. Before I do, our state is broke up almost just like this picture represents. 70% of our population lives in Vegas and Clark County. Then we have a good chunk of people in Reno, and then we have the rest of our state and our rural communities. And that's reflected in the results, but in that survey information, what I think is of value to Lander County is you can look at how rural people are and compare that to the other counties, right? Or young adults, or anything more specific. So to start, these aren't gas prices today. I just bring them up to show that you know that right off the bat, that it's not $1.39 for gas, because you have a really good reference point for it. You're always paying attention to it. We didn't have a very good reference point for the general population. We hear from, we hear people that like us a lot and that don't like us a lot. But there's this huge swath in the middle that we don't know that well. And you can make up who those people are, but that's most of the population. We asked, though, in our survey, what are you interested in when it comes to outdoor activities? How much time do you spend outdoors? Are you healthy? Are you happy? And we kind of compare and contrast with the general population in these few target groups. This is a graph for those of you that can't see. It highlights different activities that we ask people if they're interested in. Anything with a red arrow is an activity that people here or in rural counties are more interested in than the average population. Camping, hiking, hunting, off-roading, a handful of different things. There's lots of graphs like this throughout the materials and the survey results, just to highlight that there are significant differences between the populations. If we go to Vegas, it looks different than Lander County. And I should say, this is just interest. And interest far, far, far outpaces what people actually do. We also asked people what was important to them when it comes to spending time outdoors, and overwhelmingly, it's fresh air. People love fresh air. We can't define it, but it kind of encapsulates a bunch of things for different people. They also get a lot of benefit out of just mental health, stress relief, relaxation. These are the things that drive people outdoors. Barriers. This is the stuff that keeps people from spending time outdoors. This is another graph with the rural counties broke out from Washoe County and Clark County, and it happens to be that time is always the biggest barrier, no matter the population that we look at, but it's even bigger for the rural counties. About a third of the people cited that time was a big deal, and then you see weather, crowding, cost.
Question real quick.
Go get 'em.
So you do these surveys, you have these statistics. Are departmental or divisional policies ever set from these statistics? Do they look at it? Because, usually when you're doing a survey, because you're trying to accomplish something, you're trying to look at future trends, but that's been the problem in the state of Nevada is always like Clark County, Washoe tend to set the trends for the rest of the state that doesn't necessarily reflect what happens in the rural communities,
Yeah, the idea is we don't know the 97% in the middle. What are they doing? What do they want? How can we better serve them? We work for all of them. So that's exactly the idea. And we knew on the front end that you can't look at rural communities through the same lens as you would Clark County. So that's why it's one of the breakouts. And we could have done it by city, but county, for just purposes of the survey, was easier to check out that way. But the same goes as if you're in Clark County or in Vegas, you could look at this and see what it is for that
Right.
population. This is fun and sad. I'll get to one a little bit later that's a little sadder, but we asked people, what is the maximum distance you're willing to travel to visit a park or natural area? So a river, a mountain range, a state park, wherever. And overall, about a third of our population will go 100 miles or more, but most people aren't gonna go further than 50 miles. And if you live in Battle Mountain, Nevada, that's probably hard to believe. But this is what it is. And the median for the rest of the state was 80 miles. And I say this coming from someone who grew up hunting and fishing and being outdoors. I don't understand that, but that's not my upbringing. But it's just where a lot of people are at. And I have pictures here of Lake Tahoe and Lake Mead, because we'll get into it a little bit later. Young adults are the least willing to travel when it comes to different adult populations. And unfortunately for them, Lake Tahoe and Lake Mead are more than 30 miles from the center of Reno and the center of Las Vegas. So you've got essentially half of the young adult population that's unwilling to travel that far. This is a graph on the left-hand side talking about people's health. And then on the right, I just point out that if you go through any of these graphs, you'll see the hash line in the center. It says overall. That's the overall average for this graph. And then each one of those pieces on the left, you can't read them, but it could be age group, it could be ethnicity, it could be if you live in a rural county, but it shows you against average where you fall. And if you're, yeah.
I didn't know what the average was when you're saying 6 hours or more a day, a week, a month,
That's a median for a week.
a week.
Yep.
Okay, I couldn't find that, and I saw that on your information, and I thought, what do they mean, a day?
No, a week. And they use the median rather than the average, because someone might be outside a lot,
Sure.
right? So they would skew,
No, I understand
skew
that,
it
I just
higher.
didn't know what the reference point was.
Nope, that's it. And the reason I point that out is because that was one of the things I was most interested in, is if you could quantify it. And the idea is that people who spend more time outdoors are happier, healthier people. It's one of the only things that matters when it comes to quality of life, and we happen to be going outdoors less and less. We're just more and more disconnected from nature. And then the percentages at the top, anything that falls within 3% either way, so 3% above or 3% below the average is not statistically significant, but anything 4% or greater counts for the size of our survey. So things that count, like on this, you'll see it throughout the paper, but health and happiness run together. And to measure those, we asked just what kind of health are you in? It's a general question. I actually stole it from a Nature Scientific Report paper, but it was asking, generally speaking, what is your health like? And then we also asked a similar question for happiness. We didn't ask people, how happy are you? We asked them, how satisfied are you with your life on a scale of 1 to 10? So these are the cross tabulations: Clark County, Washoe, the rest of the state, Hispanics, non-Hispanics, age, and then recreation orientation. Just trying to get a grasp on what people think about if it's wildlife activities or not. This is the young adult population. They are more interested in the activities listed there: camping, hunting, off-roading, recreational shooting. We also wanted to know what people thought of us as an agency, if they knew who we were. And generally speaking, young adults don't know us as much and they trust us less, and they're most sensitive to travel. On the bottom, the social media and phone apps is just into reference of how it's best to communicate with them. This is the sad one, or I call it sad. This is the young adults. Half of the young adult population will not go 30 miles or more to visit a park or a natural area. Different generation, there's a lot of things that come into this, whether it's costs or otherwise, but for someone like me, it means that I have to come up with things that are closer to people if I want to actively engage them in the outdoors.
I have a question about your slide there. Is there any calculations on how many acre feet down Lake Mead is?
For me?
No, there should be some calculation somewhere on how much water we are down in Lake Mead. In 74, 73, 74, 75, the alkali line would appear, maybe go down 6 feet, 8 feet, but then in the spring it would disappear. What, you got 100 yards there, alkali?
Commissioner, I have absolutely no idea how far down Lake Mead is.
Well, it's 2 miles to the water from Colville Bay, and that's where I kept my boat, so where'd it go?
Yeah, I couldn't tell you. Honestly, I've been to Lake Mead several times, but I grew up in Winnemucca. I'm not familiar with Lake Mead, where it's been or where it's going, but I know we need more snow in Colorado. This is the Hispanic population. They're almost the same as young adults when it comes to what they're interested in, more than average. Time and not having friends and family interested in the outdoors is a bigger barrier for them. And culturally, that makes sense if you want to do things with friends and family and they don't want to spend time outdoors. It's a barrier. This is just a slide highlighting that different groups of people have different barriers, whatever those are, to the outdoors. For Hispanics, it's time and the friends and family, like I cited earlier, but just that different groups of people, whether you're looking at young adults, Hispanics, people who are in rural areas, they face different barriers. Most of them being perceived barriers, but many of them are actual realized barriers. I'm going to blow through this really fast because we're almost to lunch, and this is the least important of the information. We asked people what they're interested in, and we tried to categorize them in different groups. All this says is that if you're very interested in any one activity, you get put in the bucket. So 56% of people in the state of Nevada are at least very interested in one of those 3 activities on the left: wildlife viewing, hunting, or fishing. Same with the center. So you can fall in all 3 buckets, and essentially about half of the state falls in all 3 buckets. And in terms of a gradient, it's a lot easier to go walking and running than it is to go hunting or fishing, so we kind of expect to see that. Just highlights, time is a gigantic barrier to a lot of people. If you want to get people engaged in the outdoors, it has to be closer than you may think. They're just less willing to travel. Know your audience. There's differences between the communication forms that they really want to be talked to, and then the important reasons to spend time outdoors across populations it makes people feel better. Picture on the left is a gym. I don't have to explain to you if I'm trying to lose weight or if I'm trying to stay in shape. If someone's going to the gym, we know they want to improve their health. The reality is the same could be said for the right, but we don't recognize it in that way. We're more and more disconnected from the outdoors, but we don't recognize it, so when we actually go out there, we feel better. I'm going to highlight a couple of stats later, but one I like is that whether it's hiking, hunting, fishing, biking, you name it. If it's outdoor recreation, even walking for exercise, almost half of Americans ages 6 and up will not do that once in a year. 46%. So 46% of people will not even go walking for exercise in a year. Okay, changing gears. This is the dollar and cents of it. This is probably where you're going to be more interested. I just referenced that I work on it because it helps connect people to nature. It's healthy food when it comes to hunting. And actually, UNR Cooperative Extension pushed this project forward. We just worked as a co-collaborator with them. But we asked people throughout the state, where do you go hunting? How often do you go? What does it cost you? What are your travel costs? What do you pay for? What do you buy? And we have data on all the counties, so it cycles down so that Lander County can look at like how does hunting impact us. And the reason I will say that we were excited about this is we didn't trust some of the federal figures, and they actually underrepresented our overall figures significantly. Nevada hunting is not the same as many other places. It's proximity, it's time, it's how many people go on a sheep hunt compared to, how many people go on a whitetail hunt in Kansas. So we used a few different sets of data. We collect our own administrative data. If you go hunting on a tag, how many days did you hunt? How many days did you scout? Harvest statistics, and then we put out a survey to quite a few hunters just asking them, hey, we're trying to collect this information. It hasn't been done before, and if so, it's been several decades, and we want to know what it looks like. These are our overall numbers. Tag-related expenditures for the year in Nevada in 2020 were $80 million. Upland hunting expenditures, $40 million, and then big ticket items, $260 million. So $380 million in economic generation for the state of Nevada that was captured in Nevada in 2020. And this was actually a 2-year study. We did 2019 and 2020, so you could compare and contrast against pre-COVID, post-COVID, and there was no difference or no statistical difference. So it's essentially pandemic-resistant activity. And you can see here where the numbers are coming from, what's from the big ticket items, what's from travel costs, and all the way down. What I'll say is that when we ask about the big ticket items, because say you're going on a hunting trip and you buy a new gun just for that hunting trip, you're not going to do that every year, so we're trying to pull that out. And also say you bought a trailer. Like, what is your primary use of this? So we're not trying to capture everything someone buys in a year. Tag-related expenditures, this is kind of getting nitty-gritty, but one thing I wanted to point out is, I found it very interesting working with Cooperative Extension and talking about it, is sometimes there's a sentiment that, well, the out-of-state hunters bring in a lot of money. And it's not that they don't, they absolutely do. But 65% of your purchases are made before you leave. So and residents actually go hunting more, so more dollars per hunter are captured for a resident hunter than a non-resident hunter, and I just found that very interesting. And then this is just some data that's broke out on the costs of an overall hunt, and you can cycle it into day to day, and then there's also really good information in there on, if you brought somebody else that wasn't a part of your family, or how many people went on your trip, or how often did you go scouting. It's just things that we're never going to see in a big federal report that averages things out for a handful of states. So the arrow might not be perfect, but this is just showing the tag-related expenditures per county. Like I said, $80 million annually for the state, and $4 million of that is for Lander County. Total upland hunting expenditures. We just wanted to break out upland hunting from big game hunting. What's it look like per day? And I'm just pitching it as something that there's room for growth. More people can come to Lander County, more people can go to all of our rural counties to go upland game hunting.
Tell them to go to Humboldt County to hunt.
You can send them to Humboldt County. No, part of this is, UNR jumped on board with this because we had something that was easier to measure and we had some kind of data to start from. But I mean, it can be biking, it can be other things. There's, you know, Moab was just a spot on a map, and now it's a recreation hub. And I'm not saying you want to be Moab, but that some of this stuff does help diversify the economy. The arrow isn't pointing very good on this one, that's my fault, but this is just highlighting that there were over 13,000 upland hunt days in Lander County in 2020, and this is more, Alec Bowman was the person I worked with Cooperative Extension, but he could tell you exactly, you know, how many days is going to be what, and we could parse it out through that report, but I am not that strong in math. Just highlighting the big ticket purchases here. As I said earlier, about this is breaking out the totals from the totals on supplies and gear, which was close to 40, so adjusted 260 for the year on big ticket items captured in Nevada. That's the same slide, it looks like. Oh, I'm sorry, I started going backwards here. Important takeaways I touched on earlier, but there wasn't a difference. Pandemic, pre-pandemic, post-pandemic. I know a lot of things got shut down, hunting didn't. All kinds of forms of outdoor recreation, hunting, fishing, these things help diversify our economy, and they're also good for people. Quality of life for the citizens that live here, and people visiting here. Conserving our habitats, open space it provides for these opportunities, especially close to home, is important for people. $380 million a year, I just like to highlight it because I know if we looked at other reports, it would cite it as lower, and I think this data is pretty solid. Here are a few statistics. I already pointed out that almost half of Americans don't recreate outdoors once in a given year. But Americans like to spend about 7 hours a day on a screen, whether that's a phone, a computer, a laptop, a tablet. 1 in 5 Americans experience a mental illness in a given year. 2 in 5 Americans are obese. 1 in 5 children are obese. And then this is my pitch, personal pitch, but 17 minutes a day in nature is the new 10,000 steps. If you spend 2 hours a week in nature, you're gonna be a happier, healthier person. I know it doesn't come in a pill, but it's actually better this way. Actually, I think that is it, and I would be happy to answer any questions. I'm sorry that the reports are so long. I just know that the information never gets to people that make decisions, so.
Thank you very much for all the work.
We like you guys to come because we like to go hunt. Any questions? Public comment?
I do have just a quick
Thank you very much.
I'm wondering, what state departments actually receive this and utilize this information, like Commission on Tourism?
The Department of Tourism and Cultural Affairs has been sent the report. I only presented to many of the other state federal agencies last week. It's all pretty fresh. But yeah, the only bummer that I run into is if I send someone an email with a 200-page report, they just throw it out. So I have to try and find a better forum to kind of convey that information.
I just wondered if they were utilizing it.
I definitely sent it to them, but I would have to ask them how they plan to use it, if I'm being honest with you. But that's the idea is, I'm only gonna be able to do so much with it, but it's people and communities that if you can pencil things out, give context to things, it goes further.
Well, and we do, I'm part of the convention tourism board, sit on that board, and we have the Chuck Repeat every year. That thing is sold out within 3 weeks of, I mean, that's 350 people, and those people come from everywhere. And so I mean, people enjoy being being outside and utilizing those assets of hunting. So, thank you for all of your work.
Yeah, thank you.
Bobby, thank you for showing up. I asked him to be on here and present. I seen this presentation, well, a portion of it, not the whole thing, and the numbers are staggering how much economy it creates, and then the limited amount of time that people actually spend outside and in our community. You think that more people would be out and outdoors, so I I wanted him to come present this, and we really appreciate you taking the time to do so.
Yeah, no, absolutely, thanks for having me.
You wanna know something sad? People I've known for years have never even gone over the tracks to go out that North Battle Mountain exists. I'm just, that is staggering to me.
Number 13 for discussion and possible action to approve, disapprove.
Number 9.
Oh, 9. 9. Oh, okay. Discussion, possible action, approve, disapprove renewal of the Lander County Kids Club lease agreement between Lander County and Lander County Kids Club located at 150 West 3rd Street, Battle Mountain, Nevada.
Afternoon, ladies.
Thanks for waiting so long.
All right. I'm Danelle Holt-Taylor. I'm the director of the Lander County Kids Club.
And I'm Carrie Shanahan, and I am the current secretary on the board. So we're not sure what you guys needed from us. There was a communication error between Lauren. She was like, I didn't know what audit they needed from us, so we're not sure.
So what they're talking about is a conversation they had with me. At the last meeting, you requested to have yearly, their financial audits submitted. They took that as a different way. They don't do or they don't do external audits, they do internal. So they're here to ask what it is that you want.
This was tied to the grants, because we're
Yes.
getting grant money, right?
Yes.
They just wanted to make sure it was being used appropriately.
Correct.
We haven't gotten grants from you guys since 2018.
You've received free rent
Yes.
since 2018,
We've paid $10 a year, yes.
12.
But they paid 10, we
Currently
have
it's 10, and
increased
we're
it to
supposed to be
12.
increasing it to 12.
If you don't consider that a grant, I don't know what a grant is.
Well, I know prior to 2019, we actually did submit 4 grants, and we did receive them, and when we did receive them, we did provide receipts and information of where the money went, but other than the discounted rate of rent, we actually haven't received any.
I actually think
funds.
part of the audit that you wanted had to do with the rent, which was only 10, which they have increased to 12. And correct me, do you guys have your 501c3 yet?
Yes, I think so. I mean, we are a legal nonprofit.
Okay.
We have been since the very beginning.
Is it a 501c3?
I think so. Lauren does all the paperwork. I'm.
You can't be legally, you can't be given free rent or reduced rent without being a charitable 501c3.
It was in the last meeting, and I do believe they were in the process of getting it, so.
Okay, so this is so it's just so you know, and I know it's very nervous sitting on that
Yeah.
side. I understand and I respect that, been there many times. So something, as a 501c3, you guys have been, in business long enough that should have been accomplished. And so when you come to these meetings, my suggestion is that you always have a copy of your 501c3, because you are getting your grant, because you are getting free rent, because if you were charged for that building, would probably roughly be about $1,200 a month. So you actually are, and I know that people don't realize it that way, but you are. So my suggestion is that you please turn into the county your documents for being a 501c3. And I don't know if the rest of our guidelines require their financial statements, but if it doesn't, then we can't do anything about that. But we do want to know that you are active and that you are filed with the state of Nevada. Make sure that you have all your licensing. And so all those documents, at least once a year, need to be turned in. So because those things fall off and people forget, and then they go inactive and you have to start again. So that would be something that needs to be turned in to the county. So for you to continue to get your rent at that rate, that we have that, please, because that's just something that we have to, because that building's owned by the taxpayers, and then we have a responsibility to them to make sure we're having you do what you need to be doing as well.
No, and that's totally fine. We were not.
No, I know.
We were not
No,
aware of that.
it's-
If I'd known,
It's
I could have brought.
No worries, and so
I could have looked
that's
it up and
just,
stuff.
so that's where that's coming from. So that needs to be turned into the finance department, so we have all that information.
can do that today. Yep.
You know, based on what you said, because you do have changeover, especially in nonprofits, with people come in new and don't know what else going on. I'm not in favor of a 4-year lease, and I don't know why we wanted to change that. It was 2 before, and now it's 4, and I think that's too long. We need.
Oh, I thought we just did it yearly. I wasn't aware that we did it more often.
The old
than that.
contract said 2 years.
Oh, we've been coming in every year to refresh it, as far as I know.
We like the update, but, however the commission wants to handle that, to change that time frame of whether you
Well,
want
2
your.
years, we're trying to keep all of our contracts on 2 years, correct? Cause they're easier to follow if we have, am I correct on that? Or
I think we've been bumping him to 4.
Have you?
Well, at this meeting, we have been.
Depends on the contract, yeah.
So.
We have a variety pack of contracts,
Yeah.
some at the airport are extended all the way up to 25 years to the ones that are more local and more hands, when I say local, I mean the ones that are more interchanging or nonprofit related, are 2 to 4.
Yes.
Well, as
So-
long as they have all of their ducks in a row and sent in, I don't mind to do the 4 years, as long as they have everything into us.
Yeah,
that
but
we
with
need.
people changing, we don't know that.
They need, that's their responsibility, so every year they turn their stuff in, that's their responsibility.
So do we want to approve it contingent upon that they have the proper paperwork?
I'm fine with that.
For 4 years, correct?
Yeah.
Because 4 years isn't a bad
Because it's a
amount.
30-day out. I mean,
Yeah.
You can legally do it, and it's not a bad term as long as there's a provision that they provide the proper.
I still like the 2-year on a
Well, doesn't
nonprofit,
say-
I really do.
It does, to me, it doesn't make any difference, as
Right,
long as they have their, it's a 6 of one, half dozen of another, as long as they have their paperwork, they're fine, so.
30-day out, so it doesn't really, it's just
Yeah.
less paperwork.
So,
We need the service.
so,
Right.
Yeah, we do have a lot of, we got a lot of teachers' kids and, you know, hospitals' children and minors' kids that come in, so.
So is Lander County, is that the preschool, Lander County Kids Club? Kids Club? No?
Right behind the High Desert,
We're in the old
Is that-
We're in,
is it
yeah, the old
preschool?
DMV.
right across from.
Old
Yes,
DMV.
but is it a preschool?
It's a preschool and a
Daycare.
daycare.
Oh,
It's
okay.
one half is preschool, one half is daycare.
So. Your promotion.
Yeah, let's get a motion going.
Well, I'll make a motion that we approve the renewal of the Lander County Kids Club lease agreement between Lander County and Lander County Kids Club located at 150 West Third Street, Battle Mountain, Nevada. And just that motion and acceptance of this contract is contingent upon them providing the necessary paperwork to prove that they're a legit
501c3.
Okay.
So as written, correct? The motion is approve the contract as written, contingent upon.
Yes.
I'll second.
Okay, Brian made the motion, Kathy seconded. Any public comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, ladies.
Thank you. We'll get that paperwork
Keep up
into
the
you.
good work.
Yep, we will.
Glad you're there, thank you.
For discussion, possible action, approve, disapprove the renewal of the contract of services of county health officer between Lander County for and on behalf of Lander County and Dr. Troy Ross, MD, MPH.
So we do have Dr. Ross on the phone. He, in speaking to him, he is willing to continue as our health officer currently. And he would just like to extend that out.
So this is a 4-year contract again.
Correct. With the same out, I believe, in theirs for both parties. Correct.
Good afternoon, Doctor.
Well, this shows that it's 3 years.
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Am I looking at it wrong?
Can you hear me okay?
January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2026.
That's 4 years.
It's for you.
Yes, sorry.
Nothing on this has changed other than
The dates.
the dates. And does I have a question, then, how are we keeping track of these grants? I mean, we have something,
Me.
Okay.
Carly Lakin.
Okay, so every year you go through and look and see what to do. Okay, thank you. And, just like Dr. Wilcourt said, I think we have some issues coming down the road with different ailments that are going to be hitting, so I think that this is these are very useful to have. Dr. Ross says it will be very useful. Unfortunately, it's too bad we have to have this, but I do believe, just from watching, since I'm, for whatever reason, now up at 1 o'clock in the morning watching the news, world news, that the things that, as then what he stated about another pandemic is something that's growing that's boiling up. You can start with hearing going that throughout the world if you start watching, and they're trying to figure out how to get ahead of it. So I think this is a very useful service for us to have as Lander
It's
County.
in compliance with Nevada law.
Yeah.
too.
Right.
And if we don't have this,
They get to tell us.
we don't have a say.
Yeah, that's why I say they get to tell us what to
Yes.
do. Okay. So.
Ready for a motion?
Yep.
I'll make a motion that we approve the renewal of the contract for services of county health officer between Lander County for, and on behalf of Lander County and Dr. as the contract is written.
Does he want to say anything?
I don't know.
He may want, you want to ask him if he wants
I
to?
can't hear that.
We're
Dr.
getting,
Ross,
so
they're
his
echoing.
microphone is on, and because it's on, we're getting your feedback. He was not speaking at all. That was your feedback through his microphone.
Brian made the motion, Kathy seconded it. Any public comment? I'm gonna make a public comment. I want to pat my fellow commissioners on the back, because even with all the blowback and all the flack we got, we were correct. In everything that we did with COVID, we were spot on. Now we have the data to back us up. Call for the vote?
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, Dr. Ross.
Number 11, for discussion possible action to approve, disapprove the renewal of the lease agreement for Austin Library in Austin, Nevada between Desmond Skeet and Lander County.
So this is just a renewal of our lease on the building that our library is currently situated in Austin. And,
I understand they were still in the middle of selling the other property that goes with this, and you have spoken with Desi, right?
correct, I've spoken with not only Desi, but the individuals that are buying.
And they will, I think the contract, usually contracts for property include any leases.
So the issue here is that they're actually with the title and the way the title company works in Austin, they have to do a handshake deal. So now, we're continuing the lease with Desi because Desi is retaining ownership until he's paid in full for this. And the buyer is happy with the
Yes,
current
and
contract,
they're-
how
yeah,
it stands.
They're fine with it too. So
Correct.
we're okay.
Yep.
So on we go.
All right, you wanna make a motion then?
I'll make a motion that we approve the renewal of the lease agreement with the Austin Library in Austin, Nevada, between Desmond Skeet and Lander County.
I'll second the motion.
JR made the motion, Brian seconded. Any public comment? Anybody from Austin on the phone? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Okay, now we'll go to 14. Board discussion
Third.
possible action to approve, disapprove, allowing the county management to spend an amount not to exceed $7,000 to a documentary video on the local opioid overdose.
And that's 13.
That's 13, number 13.
Oh, number 13, I'm sorry.
So the reason I put this on the agenda before you guys is because when we talked about doing some community outreach on opioids and some of the, you know, maybe a local, one of the local kids who had overdosed and doing some sort of, almost like a victim impact type of, I don't know how else to put it,
Where do you want to show the videos?
yeah, so, well, I want to show it everywhere. I want to put it up on you know, with our newsletter. I want to put it up in the school. I want to, you know, put this everywhere to try to reach as many of our kids as possible. I didn't realize that it came with this kind of price tag. I reached out to another company that came back at 15,000.
Yeah, this is good.
Yeah, Dr. Ross reached out to one that came back at 13,500. So when I seen that price tag, I'm like, my goodness, I better put this in front of the commission before we spend that kind of money. But I don't know what else to do for the community outreach, and I think that this one is specific to the kid and the family that is local and may have the most bang for the buck to hit some of our local kids where they can put a name and a face to what's happening.
We will receive our county allowance from the opioid settlements.
We have been.
Oh, we
So-
have been?
Yes.
So
we've received
this certainly
2 or 3.
will offset that. That's what we should be doing with it. I mean,
And yes, and matter of fact, it's a condition.
So we could use that money for something.
Absolutely.
Yes, you have to use your.
good.
And it's a good analogy. Bert gave an analogy to a victim impact statement. That's what this is. And it's good. It's not just to the court, it's to the community.
Good.
But there's a second person, that was a young lady from a year and a half, 2 years ago when COVID started, a high school student, that I would like to see her story be in there as well.
If you can get me after the meeting, maybe if we can get together and you can give me a name and we can
Okay.
reach out and see if we can't get that family
Okay,
too also.
Yes. Okay.
All right, well, I'll make a motion, if there's no more questions, I'll make a motion that we approve Alana County Manager to spend an amount not to exceed $7,000 to a documentary video on local opioid overdose.
I'll second it. Brian made a motion, JR seconded. Any public comment? Anybody on the phone? All in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Number 14, discussion and possible action to approve, disapprove the demolition of 2 structures on Lander County property located at 196 West Forest Street. You got a license for a demo?
Thought we just corrected that.
EX license plates.
4th Street.
Yes.
Yeah,
I thought he
4th
said
Street.
Forest.
That was the typo, so.
Thank you.
These are the old buildings there by the cemetery. There's one shed and an old, it's been called a crematory. Hasn't been used in years and years and years. We went over there the other day to look at it. I grabbed the padlock and gave it a jerk and it fell apart.
We have to
People are
get
living
the
in
drain
there.
out of there first.
What's that?
We have to get
Yes,
the drain out of
absolutely,
there first.
absolutely.
No demolition now.
Geez, does anybody know where that come from? What
I
was?
have no idea,
It's
but
neat,
that's-
so.
If you build a fire in that
A
thing, the whole
train
thing
for
will
an
poof.
It wouldn't last long, so.
But somebody built a scaled down little train.
Yeah, yeah, it's old, but
Who owns
it's in
the,
good shape.
who owns the property?
It's a county property.
Can we give it to the
We do.
museum?
It's county property.
The train? No, it's like for the parade.
Yeah,
It's like
a parade.
cardboard.
It's gonna be used.
It's
so.
made out of cardboard
Yeah.
and stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty neat, so. But yes, we're gonna get rid of it, or not get rid of it, we're gonna get it out of there and use
Rita
it,
will
so.
have your-
Yes, I know.
If you got
I know.
rid of it.
But I've already had the crews over there starting to knock down weeds and stuff, so we can get in there and hopefully demo them with your permission and.
Well, will make a motion that we approve the demolition of the 2 structures on Lander County property located at 196 West 4th Street.
I'll second the motion.
Kath made the motion, Brian seconded. Any more questions, public comment? All in favor? Aye. Passes
you.
unanimously. Number 15, for discussion, possible action, to approve, disapprove revocable license and maintenance agreement between Lander County and Raymond P. Etcheverry as trust of Raymond P. Etcheverry Family Trust located 424 East Front Street, Battle Mountain, Nevada 89820, assessors parcel number 002-180-02, and more particularly described in Exhibit A of the revocable license and maintenance agreement.
So I have a question for you, actually. So on this, because I was going to originally abstain from it, but I don't know, you want to tell me if I have to. So for one, Raymond donates things to the chamber. And so I didn't know if I should not vote on this because for one, he donates for those things. And then secondly, the bigger thing is I've had countless
And I know you have.
conversations.
I
And
think,
so I would feel better if I just abstained all the way and from voting on this would be
I
the
don't
better.
believe, number one, is sufficient reason to abstain,
Okay.
but number two, without question in my mind,
Just-
because you've come to me on his behalf.
Yes, and that's why I know that,
Number
that's
of
why,
times.
so I, and that's why, oh, very good.
Now, this is the east side of the building where they're gonna put the deli?
No, I don't believe
This is
so.
where his-
This is where the sod and the awning, I believe, are.
Oh, okay.
And
okay.
it's a revocable site license agreement. Lance, once again with Brian Hardy's office, did put this together. We collaborated with Raymond's attorney as well, and everybody has agreed.
This is the power pole issue on the
Correct.
east.
And,
west side.
yes, an easement issue, yes.
Any questions?
All that said, I'll propose that we approve revocable license and maintenance agreement between Lander County and Raymond P. Etcheverry as trustee of Raymond P. Etcheverry Family Trust located at 424 East Front Street, Battle Mountain, Nevada 89820, assessors parcel number 002-180-02, and more particularly described as Exhibit A of the revocable license and maintenance agreement.
I'll second the motion.
JR made the motion, Brian seconded.
I'll abstain.
Kathy's gonna abstain. All in any public comment? Anybody on the phone? All in favor?
Aye.
And Kathy abstains. Motion passes. 16. Correspondence reports, future agenda items. I got one, Bert.
Well, I have a vote.
Get Dr. Wilcourt and make a video of his information and post it on our page. I mean, you could just do that between now and whenever, it's just.
Do we need a video?
I believe it's posted on YouTube. All these meetings are posted
Oh,
on
okay.
YouTube.
Yeah, we don't need a video.
Yeah, so it's, the video of this meeting is posted on
Yeah.
YouTube.
Because, you had Art jump right up, he wanted the information, and it needs to get out to the community. Because there'll be a whole lot more here in the near future.
So I have a couple things. Putting on the agenda, a letter from the cooperative extension, for the not being feasible for having above a bachelor's degree for the position they're trying to fill.
Oh, yes.
Okay, and then the second one, the work with DOT, they had said that they were going to be opening these bathrooms again, they were gonna be working on them on the highway, they had no portable water, and they had to fix all of this, and they said that 3 years ago, and they said they would be opening this one, east at town a year and a half ago, and they have not done anything, and they're still blocked off, and they're not doing anything, so I'd like to see where they are in their timelines to opening the one going to Winnemucca and the one going to Elko.
And you know what was interesting? On one of my trips to Elko, a couple months ago, the one side was open.
Yeah.
And it was full, just full, trucks, cars, everything, and I thought, oh, it's open.
Yeah, the
And
other
lo and
side.
behold, it must have been just for the day.
It was for like maybe a month, because I noticed.
Was it that
too.
long?
Both sides were open for about a month, and then one side going west was open.
Yeah.
And then going east was closed, and now they're both closed.
So I have, because, and the reason I know a little bit more information from the, being the travel center, we have people coming in there all the time, and we have handicapped people who try to utilize these restrooms, and they have no access to them access to bathrooms. And so, I just think that somewhere in there, they need to hold up their end and fix these bathrooms. I understand it's expensive, but they can be budgeted and that corrected, so.
At least try to get some sort of response for you on why they. We'll reach out for sure.
Okay, that's all I have.
Donnie?
Last time I talked to the state, it was, they had water issues. And like you said, they was open for a little while, then they closed them back down. But I think they're having well issues or something, but I don't know when they plan on getting them going again, so. But that's
They can
the
drill
reason.
another well.
Yeah, really, they need to.
Maybe you could have, Sean give us an update, on the things that are going on for winter and what's going on when we're gonna get the ice and blah, blah, blah.
You bet. I'll even have one from Public Works.
I got a question for Ted. Ted, here a while back, I was trying to get it going so they could shoot trap after dark at the trap range up here. Does our shooting after dark,
Prohibit?
does it affect that?
Yeah.
Right?
No.
And can we make a,
Doesn't.
I believe,
They can shoot
I
after dark.
believe that Lander County has an agreement with the gun club
Correct.
to allow that to happen.
okay,
And I'd have to look at the agreement, but Bert and I were talking about this a couple of days ago.
A couple days ago, yes, and it is allowed to be shot after dark at the gun club. It has to be considered a, this, been 2 days ago, so I already forgot. But it has to be designated a gun club for after-hours shooting, and then it supersedes the ordinance of no after-hours discharge of firearms.
so where are we on getting lighting for the trap range there?
Nowhere, because we have no budget for it.
Where are we?
So,
We don't have any.
We can set that up to go on the budget for next year?
you bet. Yep.
Okay. That answers my question.
Yeah, but I do believe that, we're looking at, some of the costs that would go in there. Arthur Ayton came in and met with us, and, they're looking at potentially even moving the club altogether, but it's a, 5 to 7 year plan, because that's what they have left on their agreement, or on their lease out there from the county, but they would like to maybe move it to another place where they can stretch the range out a little further.
Oh, yeah.
So we're putting a budget together for that, that'll be in front of you guys during budget hearings.
Talk to Brian, he's got some good ideas.
Okay. Need a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
I'll second
Oh,
it.
hold on. Public comment. Last chance, folks.
I don't have public comment, but I have a thank you letter from the FSA that I wanted to read you
Oh,
to you guys.
okay.
So I got this in, what?
He does need to open public comment for her to read that.
He did. So, this is from Braxton Neal, Sean Bengoa, and Asher Bundrock. And it says, County Commissioners, thank you for your donation of $4,500 to our marketing team. The marketing team used this money to pay our way to nationals. The team placed bronze and we had a great time. Thank you so much for the support. We couldn't have done it without you.
And that bronze is, that was at the national level. So that is a very big deal. Yes.
That's cool. Anybody else? Now I'll ask for a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Okay, Brian made it, JR seconded, all in favor, aye. See you next time.